Oh, Chair Moffat, is your microphone on?
Absolutely not, Carla. So I can hear myself just fine, is that not? All right, well, I officially called us to order at 6 o'clock for the record. And I believe before we get too deep into our agenda for today, which looks to be robust and exciting, we have an oath of office.
Thank you, Chair Moffat.
Oh, sure.
Thank you, Madam.
And you have 4 minutes, right?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I don't need that much. Thank you, sir. For the benefit of the folks in the room and people at home, my name is George Barrich. I'm a former city councilman here in the city of Cotati. I have a question about the oath of office. First of all, you may know, if I haven't brought it to your attention before, that Ms. Berman is a convicted money launderer, okay? And there is a requirement that all commissioners and city council members fill out a Form 700 of, which is a declaration of economic interests. According to the city clerk and through our PRA request, it doesn't look like anybody on the planning commission has filled out their 700 form. Now, if I'm mistaken, please correct me, okay, because I've been mistaken in the past, but all this needs to be done before you take an oath of office or you serve on the commission. So this is a very important requirement that the state legislature has required of your position on the commission. It's a serious matter. So if you need a minute to take a break, take a recess, or advise me, I'd appreciate it. But I do want to put you on notice that Form 700, according to my knowledge, has not been filled out by anybody, okay, including a member or two on the city council. So with that being said, thank you. I'm an honor to be here tonight. And thank you, Chair Moffat.
Let's continue with our oath of office.
Thank you, Chair. Tonight's oath of office for our
Oh,
newly
excuse me,
appointed...
Chair Moffat, it looks like we do have a comment request via Zoom.
Oh, fantastic. I'll remember much better to ask for those in the future. Let's hear it from Zoom.
All right, Lori Alderman, you have the floor.
To congratulate did do this with this economic statement of economic ones, and they're supposed to be given on obtaining office, and they're supposed to be readily available, and they put it into a PRA request. So I wish you all to get on the city to put these on. It's not, we don't know what economic interests you have and you're making decisions about things, about the future of the city. And if there's any economic conflicts, we don't know about it. Thank you.
Carla, is there anyone else on Zoom that would like to comment?
Chair Moffat, looks like that will end public comment.
Thank you.
Continuing with item 2, that is the administration of the oath of office for our newly appointed planning commissioner, and that will be done by community development technician Carla Duncan.
Is this on?
Oh, yes. All right, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your full name.
I, Sarah Sparks,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
All right, if you could sign right here. All right, congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome. And with that, Carla, would you please do a roll call?
Commissioner Sparks? Commissioner Gilardi?
Yes.
Commissioner Berman?
Present.
Vice Chair Long?
Present.
Chair Moffett?
Present. All right, let's please stand for a land acknowledgement. Absolutely.
I've spoken on this matter recently to no avail, but I want to bring some matters to your attention regarding what I feel is a ridiculous and silly land acknowledgement here. I've been coming to these meetings almost 30 years, and I don't even know how this got onto your agenda. It's just so silly. It says here, the city of Cotati recognizes that we are on ancestral lands of the coastal Miwok, who are original caretakers of this area. We don't know that to be true. It's a bunch of hyperbole and assumptions here. It's a bunch of virtual signaling, which is going on because the city's been under the policy to remove Chief Cotati from our city seal in an attempt to whitewash our city's history that was founded on this chief's name. I think eventually they want to change the whole name of the town because they feel it's offensive to Native Americans, indigenous peoples, and so forth, but this is a small step. This land acknowledgement says we respectively acknowledge the indigenous people who have been here and stewarding and maintaining the relationship with the land for millennia. We don't know that. We don't know if any other cultures were here before the Miwoks or the Pomos, okay? For all our evidence is how they took the land, they urinated on the land, they defecated on the land, they hunted on the land, they killed animals, left their offspring and babies to fend for themselves. I have no idea what this is here for. It's racist. You give no acknowledgement or respect to the other cultures, the other ethnic groups who have been here, who built this town from their bare hands. We don't know how many wars the indigenous people engaged in and fought and murdered and kidnapped. We don't know. The fact that we don't know just means that this is a bunch of liberal lunacy. Okay, it's a bunch of woke BS. And I don't want you people falling for it. I know you want to impress the city council, but you don't have to. You need to stand on integrity. You need to use critical thinking skills. And when you read something like that, like this, you need to take steps back up, do your research, which we're hoping people on the Planning Commission are going to do some basic research, and rise up and question these kinds of things, because you have a lot to question in this position that you're in going forward. There's a lot of things coming up, and this just smacks of the fact that you're going with the flow, you're going along to get along, and that's not a sign of integrity and character. It's a type of integrity and character that had me run off the city council because I would not go with the flow, okay? So I want you to think about this critically, and I want you to get a chance to think about this going forward to the next meeting and what you're going to do about it, because it's not going to go away. Whitewashing our city seal was not okay. No indigenous people or tribes came forward complaining about our Chief Cotati. Not one, ever. But they had the gall to remove that beautiful logo that we had, that beautiful city seal.
30 seconds.
Thank you, Carla. And it was shameful. I don't want you people getting caught up in this shame at all. You're better than this.
Carla, is there anyone on Zoom who would like to comment?
Thank you, Chair Moffett. Speaking to our Zoom attendees, if you'd like to make a public comment, please use the raise hand icon, or if you're dialing in, dial *9. Chair Moffett, that will end public comment.
Thank you. Please stand for the land acknowledgement. The City of Cotati recognizes that we're on the ancestral lands of the coastal Miwok, who are the original caretakers of this area. We respectfully acknowledge the Indigenous peoples who have been stewarding and maintaining a relationship on this land as knowledge keepers for millennia. This acknowledgement does not take place of authentic relationships within Indigenous communities, but serves as a gesture of respect to the land we are on. And now the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Moving on to approval of the minutes. Do we have any comments from commissioners on minutes? Do I have a motion?
I move we approve the minutes. I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do I need to do public comment on the minutes? I don't know why my brain, I just have a long day. Let's do public comment on minutes. Yeah, absolutely. Public comment for minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Very sharp of you to acknowledge that. Thank you so much. Yeah, including myself. I want to make one particular offer to correct the minutes. At the last commission meeting here, I came up and asked that Miss Berman resign or step down because she is a convicted money launderer. I don't see that anywhere on the minutes. It would be very simple to add that. That needs to be on the record that I've come forward stating this and requesting her removal. So I would ask you to add that. Thank you.
Any other comments from the audience on the minutes? No. Carla, are there any Zoom comments?
Thank you, Chair Moffett. Lori, you have the floor.
With the minutes, we really need to go back to their action minutes, and they totally do not represent anymore what happens in the meetings. You should go back 20 years, and it's all about what the citizens said, what was discussed, but between the council, the commissioners, everyone, and they were beautifully written, and I can hope that someday we'll have such minutes. Thank you.
Chair Moffett, that will end public comment.
Let's try that again. Should we redo our vote? Does anyone want to change their vote based on public comment? No? Okay. Previous vote stands. All right, moving on down, we have changes to the agenda. Mr. Hausch, any changes?
There are no changes proposed to tonight's agenda.
Thank you. Now we move to public comment, oral and written communication. Any member of the public wishing to speak to the commission at any items listed on matters at hand or any matters not listed on the agenda that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission may do so at this time. I think we should start with Zoom this time, and then so that we're kind of going back and forth a little bit. So, Carla, do we have any Zoom public comments on matters not on the agenda?
Thank you, Chair Moffett. Speaking to our Zoom attendees, if you'd like to make a public comment, please use the raise hand icon or dial *9. And Chair Moffett, I'm not seeing any Zoom public comment requests.
All right, anyone in the audience?
This is for just things that are not on the agenda?
For things not on the agenda, yes.
Then that's okay.
Thank you. Michelle Berman, I don't know what you are still doing here, sitting up there at the dais. I gave you a chance to sit down with me in private and talk about all the money that you owe me and all the damage you've done to this town. You are a convicted money launderer under the laws, political action, the Fair Political Practices Commission, and under state law. Having you sit there in that seat is a disgrace. I don't want to send you to collections. I want to settle this personally with you as adults and as professionals. We can do this either the easy way or the hard way. And that's something I learned from our police department, a little technique they taught me. When I was on the council in 2009, you got up here to this podium and said, quote unquote, "Don't make me mad, George Barrich. You don't want to make me mad." And it went on, and it went on. I mean, you really had me shaking in my boots. Pat Gilardi sat next to me, and she enjoyed the show with a little smirk on her face I'll never forget. Did you really think that you were going to get away with all this? If you did, that was a huge mistake. I didn't get mad. After the recall, the phony recall, I made a call to the FPPC, telling about what I knew about you, about hustling me out of money and disguising it as the Coalition to Protect Cotati's Future. Oh yeah. Then we leaked it to Pat Gilardi, knowing she couldn't resist filing a complaint. Oh no, she couldn't resist. I want my money back and need you to resign in disgrace. Maybe appointed council member Savage can loan you the money. You marched into my office when I served out front holding office hours on a Monday night. You and your Soviet comrades came in telling me what I needed to do or there was going to be a recall. Ganging up on me in there with your threats. Now, I don't know if you guys remember the Berman burrito speech. Let me take you back. 2009, I'm sitting there, I think where Ed's sitting. We had a nice, easy agenda that night. Berman walks in, raises her hands to speak, comes forward and says something like this: "I love Cotati. I really love Cotati. You know, Cotati is one of those towns where you can go downtown to Oliver's and get a $6 burrito, and you can eat all day and survive on that big burrito. I love Cotati." We sat there in disbelief. Who is this nutcase? You're a disgrace. Circus clown. The longer this goes on, the worse it gets, because I'm not going away. I remember our police chief sitting over here and smiling at your little show, because I too tried to cut his police budget, because we were in a huge financial crisis.
20 seconds.
Thank you, ma'am. Your little plan backfired, okay? And now you got to deal with it, like whatever you are.
Any other comments? Okay. Matters at hand. Our first matter at hand is the Redwood Row preliminary design review.
Thank you, Chair Moffett. Item 8A on tonight's agenda is the Redwood Row preliminary design review, tree removal permit, and parkland dedication and vested tentative map. you'll have to pardon me, Senior Planner John Paul Harries was lead staff on this. However, he's unavailable tonight, so I am going to be backfilling him with my presentation. And then in the room, we have City Ventures staff, who are the developers on the project. And we also have Heather from M Group, our environmental consultant, available on Zoom if there's any CEQA questions. And with that, I will be getting into the presentation, and I'm running the slide deck for one of the first times, and so also bear with me on that. So the project description, Redwood Row is a 134-unit townhouse-style condominium project. The units, the homes are spread across 26 individual buildings. There's an optional ADU or accessory dwelling unit floor plan where up to 33 of those condominiums could have ADUs if that option is elected to be chosen by the purchasers of the homes. There's also a 44-unit separate apartment building proposed to meet this project's affordable housing component. There's about 10,000 square feet of commercial space, which are also going to be separate commercial condominiums, so they'll be for sale commercial units, and those front onto Highway 116. There's 2 public park spaces, which total about an acre in size. The frontage of the site will be improved with a Class 1 multi-use path, separate from the highway. There's many on-site amenities, including swimming pool, VUNERF elements, and the entitlements being requested are design review, tree removal permit, and a vesting tentative map. Just a little background, there's a significant amount of history going up over 25 years on this project site. And so some of that history has kind of driven some of the decisions that are made as to the design and access points, because there are easements recorded on the parcels that have kind of dictated that the project design around those in some ways. And so we'll talk about that as we get into it. It's worth noting that there was an approval for a Nokia corporate campus on this parcel many, many years ago when Nokia was the #1 cell phone company in the world. Then the iPhone was invented, and that project didn't move forward. And then another project came forward that was approved called the South Sonoma Business Park. That was primarily a commercial development, but it did include some residential components. And that's how we got the Katati cottages, which are built today on Alder Avenue, and Lowe's also was a part of that overall kind of master plan for that entire corner. And then there's some additional parcels, which you'll see in the next slide. But as a result of that, in 2002, the site was mass graded, getting ready for construction. And all the biological impacts were mitigated at that point, and there's been payments ongoing into this South Sonoma Business Park Assessment District to ensure that that mitigation has been maintained, and that's all been verified through the CEQA analysis for this project. Fast forwarding to today, we're operating under an October 30th application set. It came in under SB 330, which vests the rules and fees that apply to this project as to that time frame. So there has been a couple code changes that the city has made since then that do not apply to this project because they are only subject to all rules in effect prior to October 30th of 2024. And we had a neighborhood meeting in this room on February 5th, advertised to all residents within, I think, over 300 feet of the site. It included all the cottages residents, just as part of our additional outreach efforts that have been codified to ensure that a planning commission meeting isn't the first time somebody hears about the project. There you go, thank you. So this is the project site, and you can see Lowe's to the north, the cottages kind of to the northwest there, and there are 4 parcels currently making up the project site, and it has to do with some of that historic approvals that have occurred on the property, so just to highlight that. Go to the next slide. So this is the project as it sits with some context. It's at the kind of just west of the corner of Highway 116 and Redwood Drive. It's about 10 acres, almost 11 acres. It's zoned general commercial. I'm sorry, the general plan designation is general commercial, and it's zoned commercial Gravenstein corridor, which is the implementing district. And then just to the west of it is Cotati Village 1. Across Alder Avenue, further west behind the Jane Dispensary and Acre Pizza is Cotati Village 2. And just to the east of this is the China Village restaurant, just for some context. And then this slide also highlights the location of the affordable housing units, that blue rectangle, the 2 park sites, the yellow spaces there, and then it shows kind of an extension of the future West Cotati intersection, which you can't see because of the text box on the slide. But it comes in, the road is proposed to be realigned so that kind of oblique angle where West Cotati hits 116 will be turned into a 90-degree angle. So this is the same slide, but just isolating the site plan, again highlighting the location of the affordable housing units, the 2 proposed parks, and the location of the primary entrance to the site, which is where West Cotati is planned to be realigned through a city design project that's underway. So this is the vesting tentative map slide. This also shows some of that historic easements that are recorded. So all the hash marks that are on this slide are public access easements. So just to show all the areas which will be available to the public if the project's approved. The double hashing are new public areas, and the single hashing are existing easements that exist on the parcel related to some of those past project approvals. There's also the layout of the streets, infrastructure. This is in the packet set that was forwarded to the commission for your review, but we wanted to highlight it. And then getting into some of the architecture, this is a rendering of what the mixed-use homes would look like from Highway 116 at that primary entrance point. And so there's ground floor commercial spaces, second and third floor condominiums. Again, for these units, the mixed-use units, the commercial condos are available for sale separate from the residential condominiums. And this shows the separated bike lane, mixed-use path, kind of with a large vegetated barrier between Highway 116 and that future development. This is an architectural rendering of the proposed apartment building. This is fronting onto an unnamed street, but the internal circulation drive, and it's built to city street standards with street trees, landscaping, all those things. It's proposed to be that with the private open space on the balconies, meeting the city's objective design standards for multifamily housing as would be required. Getting into some of the park details, this is the dog park. It's about a half an acre. It's got some dedicated parking, but it's proposed to be shared with the commercial spaces, several amenities, grassy areas, bike and ped connection down to the bike and ped trail on 116. This is the far northwestern corner of the site, as was highlighted. This is the second park area. There is kind of the clubhouse pool area, which is separate from the park space. But similarly, just over a half an acre, has some parking dedicated to the park and the commercial area, bicycle parking. This one has a small playground. The other one's intended to be kind of a dog park. And it has on-site amenities and will have pedestrian connectivity out to the street and internally connected to the home's internal circulation network as well. And one thing to highlight, one of the significant oak trees on the site is kind of right in the middle of the property, and the design team chose to highlight that, incorporate it into the site plan as a feature, and that's what this round kind of circulation feature in the driveway is surrounding that oak tree. So it's one of the primary viewpoints you'll see as you enter and exit the site. So getting into some of the details about state density bonus law, this is a state density bonus project. That means the city is required to grant concessions and incentives that the developer has a right to. The developer is only requesting one, I believe, concession. There's concessions, incentives, and waivers. They all kind of function the same, but they have legal differences. So I believe it's one concession. The developers can correct me if I'm wrong. And that's regarding our Municipal Code Section 1731040, and that's regarding the dispersed units. Our code identifies that affordable housing units should be spread throughout a development. The developers have proposed to consolidate those in that location that was highlighted with the blue square, or rectangle, I'm sorry. And the intention, as they've indicated, is it would make the project more competitive for affordable housing funding, and then also allow them to partner with an affordable housing developer who's more specialized in finding that funding, is fairly competitive. They are proposing to meet the on-site 15% required by the city to do 8 very low income, 8 low income, and 8 moderate income units, so spread them across the income levels as our code identifies. And then they're proposing an additional 20 units beyond what would be required of them under our code, proposed at the moderate level, to bring that total unit count to 44 units in that below market rate apartment project that's proposed. They are requesting the one concession, as I mentioned, and the only kind of increase in their density beyond what actually is required under the zoning code, which is 15 units per acre, is those extra 20 units. So if it weren't for the developer proposing to grant additional units to the city, they would not actually be exceeding the density allowed on the site, although it is a density bonus project that would allow them almost 200 units if they chose to take full advantage of what's allowed under state density bonus law. Again, they are allowed concessions, which is relief from some of our standards, and they have a right to those. The city cannot deny them. And as we already talked about the specifics, it's worth noting the affordable housing units are spread across all of the unit types. So, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and 3 bedrooms at every income level. So it's not that they're proposing all the affordability, the lowest affordability in the smallest units. They're spreading all of it equally distributed. They do plan on partnering with an affordable housing developer. They haven't chosen them, but Burbank Housing has been one of the groups that was raised in conversations. And again, they've talked about the reasoning as to why they need that concession. It allows their project to be financially viable, which under state density bonus law is why the city would be required to grant that. There's some details into kind of the description of a waiver under state density bonus law, and they are asking for some waivers to our standards. The primary one from the commission standpoint would be a mixed-use project in Cotati is required to have 25% of its floor area as commercial. They're requesting a significant waiver from that. It's primarily a residential project, but they are proposing some commercial development. The VUNRFs, they are not identifying 100% compliance with the VUNRF standards, so they are requesting some waivers from those standards. And the developers indicated that their goal is to finalize all those details with final design review. They really want to be able to get the VUNRF design right, but they have identified the locations, and there's a lot of materials in the plan set about what kind of ideas they're thinking about. And obviously the fire department's going to be involved with that final design because circulation with the fire trucks is a key component of VUNRF compliance. There are some other ones like setbacks required. They want to do a 0-foot setback on Highway 116, which staff is very supportive of, but it is a waiver from the standards, which would require a greater setback. And then we have kind of a unique accessibility requirement for multifamily housing in our zoning code, and it says 10% of the units in a multifamily housing project are required to have accessibility components, meaning ADA. And they're asking for a waiver from that for the zoning standard, but they will be required to meet all accessibility requirements that live in the building code. So from staff standpoint, it's a little bit of it's a redundant standard that we have in Cotati, and they will be 100% building code compliant, which does require a certain number of units be ADA accessible and a certain number of units be able to be converted to meet full ADA accessibility if that would be needed. So just know that that is also a request that's included in the density bonus waivers requests. Okay, so in considering kind of what's under review, so planning consideration and then the findings that are in the resolution and the ordinance that is before the commission, architectural and design standards, obviously the site layout, landscaping, and then the ability for the city to provide services. All those things are things that we would be saying are met. Staff has analyzed and absolutely is recommending and identified that they are being met, but the commission would be saying they're being met in granting or approving the resolution, and then ultimately if the council chooses to approve the ordinance. Similarly with the subdivision, there's consistency with the general plan requirements, there's suitability of the site for the type of project proposed, avoidance of impacts, the ability for the city to handle all of the utility needs, water, sewer, et cetera. And there's a lot of analysis in the environmental document that documents all of that. Staff is 100% supportive, and we've written the resolution and the ordinance to support that and make those findings. There's a requirement for the parkland dedication. When any new subdivision is approved, there's, especially residential subdivision, I should say, there is a requirement that the developer address the parkland requirements, and that can be done through a combination of either land dedication or fees, which this development is proposing a combination. Based on the formula in the ordinance, 1.88 acres are required. They're proposing to contribute 1.08 acres as approved public park under those two spaces that we talked about. And then fees will be paid for any remaining cost. They do get credit for the cost of improvement of that park. So it'll be something that we work out as we look at the building permit and the actual cost of the construction of the park, in addition to the value of the land. So that's a formula that's in the zoning code. We're required to implement it, but staff wanted to highlight that it is a combination of dedicated land, fees paid, but that there's a value for the improvement of the park to actually turn it into a turnkey park that gets handed over to the city and not just land that gets dedicated. There is tree removal findings as well. Ultimately, only the city council can approve removal of oak trees in Cotati. The tree or the project, as we've talked about, has done its best to avoid any tree removal, really, especially for over a almost 11-acre site. They are identified one eucalyptus tree that has to come out and potentially 2 oaks, but that's based on final engineering. As they get into more details, we'll know more about that. The city council will review and act on that as a part of their review of the overall project. But it is before the commission as well as part of our recommendation. And the findings are required that they retain the sites, that the trees they could, and that there's mitigation proposed for the removal of the trees. This project is proposing to plant a significant number of trees as is identified in the landscape plan, so mitigation is absolutely met. This is just talking about kind of some of the ultimate design criteria for the access points and the ultimate configuration of the intersection once it's fully built. This project is required to build their frontage, so kind of everything north and east of that red line is absolutely required of the project. And then another, you're not going to be able to see, but there is a turn lane that would be required to be installed by the project if the city design for the overall intersection is not implemented. So we've reviewed this project to identify what they have to build in order to make the project functional, but then also where ultimately all these projects will go when that 116 is fully built. It's just the timing is uncertain because there's so many moving pieces, and so we needed to have those projects be able to stand on their own, to be able to move forward on their own timelines. As we've talked about before, being able to get a project financed, funded, and under construction is very important, and we don't want to be holding that up because maybe we're stuck with Caltrans and an encroachment permit or something like that, and that absolutely has happened here in Cotati. So it's worth pointing out on the kind of the west of that vertical red line is showing the Cotati Village 1 site, which is approved. It's been purchased by new developers who want to build it, but they've said that they don't intend to do so for a couple years because they're under construction on another project. And so what was important from us is to make sure that all of these projects align as they're designing, so all the engineering of the various pieces fits together. We don't get into a situation where something that gets built doesn't allow something else or has to be rebuilt later. So just know all that has been coordinated, and we continue to do so as they move into construction level documents. And given all that, we're getting to the CEQA project. There's a huge amount of CEQA documentation. There were no unidentified or project-specific impacts that were not mitigated to a less than significant level. Under CEQA guidelines 15183, we can then use our general plan EIR. We're proposing to do that with a significant number of project-specific mitigation measures. There's over 100 pages of documentation in your packet on the CEQA analysis, and conditions of approval 129 through 154 are all environmental specific mitigation measures that have been required as conditions of approval as well. Given all that, staff from the Community Development Department is recommending that the Planning Commission open the public hearing and and find the project consistent with the general plan and EIR, exempt from further environmental review pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15183, and adopt a resolution recommending City Council approval of preliminary design review, tree removal, and a tentative map to allow the construction of this project as is described on an almost 11-acre site. I'm available for any questions, but the applicants are here and they also have a presentation. And I saw also that the property owner is here as well. And so with that, I'm available for any brief questions unless the commission wants to hear from the applicants first.
Does anyone have any questions for Director Hausch before we hear from the developers? We would love to hear your presentation.
All right, can you hear me okay? Great. I'm Adam Foster. I'm with the City Ventures team. Good evening, planning commissioners, members of the public, and staff. We're really excited to be here tonight for the Redwood Road project. And Noah, I don't have a Nokia phone anymore. It's a brick in my closet now. So a little bit about City Ventures. We are an infill developer. We pride ourselves on really working with the community and doing cool projects. I'm a former city planner. Some people say we turn to the dark side, but I think I'm on the light side and we use the force. Here at City Ventures, we do sustainable concrete. We do solar all-electric homes that have Nest thermostats. We pride ourselves on preserving trees. I think a few of us side with the Lorax. And we're even doing really neat things right now, like fog catchers on some of our projects. As I mentioned, we're an infill developer. This slide is just meant to show you we do a variety of architectural types. No one project looks the same. And we've built a lot of infill projects. We're a California-only developer in Northern California and Southern California. I just noticed there's a screen in front of me, so I don't have to keep doing this. We also try to design our projects so they integrate with the community. My wife went to Sonoma State. I've heard Cotati can be weird sometimes. We want to keep it that way. So these are examples of where we try to do things that are tailored to the communities that the project fits within. As Community Development Director Hausch mentioned, we're still finalizing some of the little design details, but know that our team, I have Sam Hauser and Darian Dendler from City Ventures here as well, we geek out on making sure every nook and cranny and every inch of our project is done thoughtfully. I personally have a tiny house in my backyard, and I love making it so the area behind the door is natural storage. So we see this as an opportunity to really partner with staff and the community to implement the city's policy to come up with a project that everybody's really proud of decades from now. This project has been going on for a little while, and just to put it in perspective, we have been working on it for over 4 years. Working closely with staff. It's a bummer that JP can't be here tonight because he's been with us for quite some while helping out. But JP, Noah, Damien have all been awesome to work with. I wanted to give them a special shout out. The staff in this area is unique and thoughtful. And what we really appreciate are opportunities where input from staff and implementing the city's policies are making the project better than what we originally contemplated. And that's what's happened here. I'll give you some specific examples of that. So here is the project site. To give you a little more context, you got the Cotati Village 1 and 2 projects were mentioned previously to the west, Lowe's to the north, and then the Cotati Hotel project not too far away. I got lucky putting this image in the upper right so it's not blocked by the text. So one really neat thing here that staff has brought, and this is again implementing the policy of the city, is the West Cotati roadway realignment project. I walked the entire city today and walked how this is going to be connecting to the greater area. You have so many neat protected bike lanes. I'm a bike commuter. I used to bike my kids to preschool. You have pretty unique, thoughtful bike infrastructure. And with the 116 improvements, not only you're getting that improved alignment, but you're also going to get infrastructure that will bring people from one side of the city to the other. I know there's the pedestrian tunnel, I think at the end of School Street, that's accessible too. But I think here with the frontage improvements, we're gonna create in a positive way, a gap that will allow people to safely get from one side of Cotati to the other. I walked that stretch myself today. It's a bummer that it's only about, I think, 0.6 miles from this project site to downtown. And with the frontage improvements, and I'm sure other improvements that will follow it, you're gonna integrate better into the greater city. So we're really excited to implement our fair share of these frontage improvements and that ultimate alignment of the intersection. It sounds like our project's likely gonna come first. We tend to try to move pretty quickly, and we're excited to bring that portion on. So big kudos to your staff for making sure that our project did that. And we, unlike maybe some developers, said, yeah, this is a good thing, let's do it, let's do the right thing by the community. We also recognize that we're proximate to a number of bus routes. There's a trail in the vicinity. You can drive to Rohnert Park. You can drive to Santa Rosa conveniently on 101. It's just 7.7 miles away. Catch a bus, the trail. If you choose to bike from here, which I certainly would, it's only a 3-minute bike ride if you go really fast, maybe a 6 or 7-minute bike ride if you have kids in tow. So it's close to downtown, and we see this project site as a true infill opportunity. It's one that's been contemplated for quite some time, and we're excited to bring a project that we think will benefit the community here. So this land, I think after Lowe's was developed in the early 2000s, was mass graded. It's been fallow ever since then. And through our lens, it's an underutilized area, and we think there's an opportunity to make it a little bit better. So walking you through our site plan a little bit for this infill site. The reddish-brown areas that are popping up are the trails for the project. So in addition to the frontage trail, we've integrated trails within the project. The one on the west side connects to the dog park. So if somebody's choosing to bike to the project and visit the dog park, as the gentleman on the bottom right is doing, you could bring your dog by bike to the dog park. And then there's also one that connects up into the vicinity of the Lowe's site. As I mentioned, bike commuter. We want to get these little details right and make it inviting and usable for the public. So for us, the opportunity, the way this site works to put in these nice trail and bike facilities is something we're really excited to bring. In terms of the architecture and the design, we've tried to think through a way of carefully massing the project so that it enhances the frontage of 116. As was mentioned, we see the oak tree in the middle of the site as a big opportunity, and we are excited to design a project that not only preserves it, but builds a park around it that should enhance the area. With the parks, as was mentioned, here you can see the highlighted areas from those easements. So the dog park in the northwest corner, that's part of the CC&Rs that were originally written for the development of this area to create that park, which is part of a larger park up to the north it will connect to eventually. But we saw an opportunity in collaborating with staff to create an additional park where that oak tree is. That way patrons of the commercial have the ability to walk right across the street, enjoy that park. We see it as a good spot for a children's play area. It's my understanding there are a number of families that are moving into the community. If the commission, if the council thinks that there's a better sort of amenity mix for that area, we're all ears. It's not finalized, but that's the concept we have. And then in addition to the public parks that we're proposing to create, we do have the pool in the middle. There's also some open space right as you enter the project where we're going to enhance and preserve the existing trees there. So overall, while the requirements for the project are only, I think it's about 20,000 square feet of open space, we're proposing more than triple of that. And I believe there are general plan policies to create parks west of 101 and north of 116. So it's our intent to help the city receive parkland in that area. I think the over 1 acre of parkland we'd be offering here would be like a 5% increase of existing city parks. So we're excited to create those opportunities in an area I think would be the city's second dog park, where the city's established more parks would be desirable. Lastly, I've been calling him Woonerf, but let's do Woonerf. I'm genuinely excited about these. I used to volunteer for Caltrans. There were a number, I was on the bicycle advisory committee, pedestrian advisory committee, and there were always people from Sonoma County who would come and opine on the cool infrastructure. I see the Vooners as a cutting edge, sort of really complete streets, let your kids go out and play, have a spontaneous neighbor block party, maybe put the Warriors game on this weekend. And we invite the opportunity to adhere to the city's municipal code here. We work closely with fire already. We think these are going to be really, real cool places, and we're excited to create them. So you can see that up among the northern part of the property is where we do those. We've been thoughtful with the colors, the architecture. One thing that we make sure to do on all our projects is sometimes communities will get built and the air conditioning condensers end up like right next to the garage or at the front of the house. This image you can kind of see at the top of the roof. There's actually a roof well, and that's where the solar panels will go, as well as the HVAC systems. We take a lot of pride in coming up with thoughtful design, using thoughtful materials, down to making sure we have the appropriate doorbell for the community. So everything that's gone into these renderings, this package, and the rest of our design, we intend to be really thoughtful and integrate well with the community. The landscaping, as I mentioned, we have a lot of ideas. We see this as a spot where you can maybe do some natural scapes, sort of kids' play materials, like you can see with the monkey bars. Have fun with the dog park. We're also going to be providing bike parking here. We want to do really cool things. We intend to do really cool things, and we're open to any input you have on those design specifics. We at City Ventures, and part of why I decided to join the light side, is we really try to collaborate with the cities and the communities to do something that's big and that we're going to be proud of. So here, the city has a lot of existing policies and its general plan that relate to this site. This site has been contemplating on the housing element for I think that dates back to 2023 was when it was introduced. But it's viewed as a city as a housing site. There are a lot of policies that relate to it. We try to hear from the community and hear your vision and then implement a project that does just that. That concludes my presentation. I'm also happy to receive any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. We will open it up to questions from the commission, and then we'll do public comment, and then we'll do discussion from the commission. Do you have any questions?
Oh, are we starting with me?
We don't have to. We can start over here.
I did have a question, Adam. I emailed you before the meeting, and I understand you probably haven't had time to respond, but one very minute detail that I picked up on was trash bins are going to be placed in the garages, and I know that those have variable sizes, so I was just curious to know like what volume you had used in those calculations.
Yes, thank you for that question. We did design the spaces so they can fit 64-gallon trash bins.
Great, okay, thank you.
I've confirmed with our architect. Thank you for that.
Wonderful.
First of all, I just want to say I love the use of the different colors and different textures to make it look like, a nice project that'll blend in with the community, that you're incorporating the use of DG in some of the sidewalks. The bike paths, I think, are great. We have a long history of a lot of people pushing for bike paths and the interconnection within the community as far as walkability. The string lights over that area, as you said, about people being able to have block parties and stuff, I think that's really great as far as building community. At one time, all houses had front porches and everybody would gather around, and we kind of got away from that, so I think that is a really nice fit. Few questions I have on the project. I see in the plans you show where there's the trash structure by the affordable housing project. I didn't see within the rest of the plan as far as are those collections within, there's a trash area built into those buildings, or is everybody going to be involved in putting out their own garbage cans and the garbage truck has to make 1 million stops for the community? How does that work?
hopefully be less than 1 million stops, but what we'll do on a project like this, we would utilize Recology, the city's existing waste provider. We would have carts here for the residents to bring out. The garages are a little bit deeper than a garage that might have been built 20 or 30 years ago. That way they can accommodate the bins. So as Commissioner Sparks had asked, we went and made sure with our architect today that the bins will be allowed to be wheeled into the garage. And then on collection day, people would wheel the bins out.
All right.
Can I follow up on just the trash? I have a ton of trash questions. Can we just like, because, trash. Where are they wheeling it out to? And if it's right in front of their garages, can the Recology trucks make it down those Woonerfs? Woonerfs? I need to go with Woonerf as well. I've also been calling it Woonerf.
Yeah.
They're 24 feet wide, the Woonerfs are, so they should still be big enough for a truck to get in and out.
And do the garbage lift?
Yes, they're wide enough for that. So in addition to trash, and this doesn't apply to the Wooners, but for our streets, we're designed to be wide enough for a fire truck. So with the arm going through, we'd make sure we're collaborating and adhering to their standards. But these are designs that we've done in a variety of communities without issue. And yeah, people just wheel their bins out in front of their garage on pickup day.
Okay. And Recology's, have you checked in with Recology? Because the reason that I ask is the Katati cottages, which are right next to that, have kind of a similar long, narrower street. And Recology has stopped being willing to pick up trash bins in front of their garages. They have to take them out to the street, which eliminates it just makes issues. So I just want to do my due diligence in saying Recology will go down these Woonerfs and pick up from that area.
They're good questions, Chair Moffett. I believe so, but what we could always do too, in the event there are any issues, is we can have our HOA wheel bins out to areas that aren't problematic so that residents don't have to worry about it. But we'll get creative and work with them and we'll satisfy their requirements.
I will say it's also typical for staff to refer projects to Recology.
Okay.
Because I wasn't the planner on this, I can't commit or confirm that we've done that, but we can commit to doing that for final design review to get additional input on that final design.
Sorry to jump in there.
That's okay, because that was kind of tied into, I was wondering about the access for the garbage trucks, but you got that answered for me. And is on the affordable housing, there'll be 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms on all 3 levels. And I love that because that's one thing we hear about all the time. It's usually like, well, there's not room for a larger family with affordable housing projects. So I think that's great. And when we're on the topic of access, your street C that looks like it actually feeds into the Lowe's parking lot, is that going to be open or is it going to be like fire restricted access only? How's that going to work?
The plan right now is that if there is any connectivity, it would be for fire only. There is an agreement from the time the property was originally developed that allows access to go through there. We want to be a good neighbor to Lowe's, and we didn't think just opening traffic up to there unless we had to was the neighborly thing to do. So at this point, the only access that's contemplated is fire if it's necessary for fire. But our emergency vehicle access for fire, our third point is off of 116 at the southeast corner of the site near China Village.
But with the closing of the fire access, there'll still be the opening wide enough for the bike path to go through?
At this time, I'm not sure if there's a reciprocal path planned for Lowe's. So our project would build the path up to that portion of the site, and then anything beyond there would be their collaboration with the city or other property owners.
Yeah, because I noticed that in their parking lot now, there's actually 2 access points going into where this proposal is. So I just want to make sure that we have, because there's a lot of units. We have 2 major access points, but for emergency vehicles, I just want to make sure that there's plenty of access in and out of the property. That question was answered.
So I have a follow-up question.
That's it for
sorry,
now.
On the Vooners and the trash, are we anticipating that the trucks will go down, turn around, and go back? Or are they going to drive in reverse? Like, what's the logistics there?
My understanding, what's typical for ecology is they'll back up to 150 feet, and these streets are a length less than that, so they'd have the ability to drive in and then back out.
Okay. Because they're not all the way through, right? They're like dead ends?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, how are you?
Great.
The project looks great. I think you guys did a great job. We have an amazing staff, so I'm not surprised that it's all put together so well at this point. I just have a couple questions about the financing piece and how you talk, well, I guess it was either a waiver, concession, one of those two, having to separate the affordable housing and that being required because it could impact financing. Did I read that correctly? Could you maybe elaborate on that a little bit, how that would potentially impact financing?
Sure. And I'll start by adding too, as Sam Hauser comes up, what we're trying to do with the project is provide housing for a variety of income levels. In addition to the market rate units, the 33 accessory dwelling units, ADUs, are also part of our housing program. So we'll have the affordable apartments as well as the ADUs. And I can speak a little bit to the apartments and how that came to be, and then I'll let you elaborate. So yeah, with the concession under density bonus law, you can request something that has a financial implication. In this instance, for affordable housing partners, the feedback we got was a project of a certain size with units in a certain area would be one that they'd have a better chance of being able to get funding for. So that's why we've designed the project the way we have.
Hi, I'm Samantha Hauser. I'm also from City Ventures, and I am the head of our development division. So to Adam's point, having an affordable partner opens up a different bucket of financing for us to help with some of the economic, underwriting for the project. We're independently and privately financed at City Ventures, so the funding has already been allocated for this project. We're not going to be looking for investors as part of this, but it does help make it more financially feasible. And as Director Hausch referred to, we have been talking with Burbank. They did help with the design of the building, the program of the building, the affordability, the amount of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms, and the ratios. So all of that has already been taken into account to help optimize achieving that financing.
And my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, was that it's on the city to prove that that there wouldn't be a financial burden to the developer in order to not accept.
That's correct. If the city were to try to not honor that, it would be on the city to do the analysis and prove that there's not a financial implication associated with the requested waiver.
Has there been any kind of analysis done?
Well, there was a legal analysis provided regarding essentially City Ventures' right to request this as a waiver under state density bonus law. Staff has reviewed that. I do actually agree with that analysis. We've also referred it to the city attorney's office to have them have a formal opinion ready for the city council. But it's also my understanding that there's been, and I don't have the exact reference in front of me, whether it's case law or an interpretation by state HCD, saying that doing this where you consolidate the affordable housing units in a separate building as a part of an overall project is allowed and implementing the intent of state density bonus law. So there's multiple facets whereby essentially we've been told legally the developer has the right to do this. And it meets muster with the state's perspective on how affordable housing is to be built.
Okay. That was kind of my follow-up question. So right now it's simply just this Cotati Municipal Code that requires the disbursement. There's no state level laws or regulations.
That's correct.
Required. Okay. And then you talked about Burbank Housing potentially being a partner or another affordable developer. Where are you guys at? Where are you at in those conversations? How does that look? What happens if you don't find an affordable partner?
Yeah, so the project's conditioned such that we need to have the affordable going at a certain time frame. So we're prepared to build that component. We try to partner with local experts in affordable housing. In this case, Burbank's a group we reached out to just about size of units and design. We work with a number of affordable builders, and we're already seeing interest in building out the affordable component of this project. So our goal is to deliver quality units and a really cool overall project to the community, and we're on top of it.
Are they going to be responsible for building it? Or are you guys?
The way the condition's written, it's that either the applicant or its affordable housing partner. So it's going to get built, I think is what matters. And at the end of the day, we, as the project proponent and builder, would be the ones making sure that we're adhering to the conditions.
Yeah, because the final occupancy for all of the project would not be given until the affordable housing's.
That's correct. That's correct. And they are proposing some kind of flexibility as that gets worked out, and that'll be talked about with the city council if they choose to grant the specific flexibility that gets requested. But to your point, all the units that are market rate will not be occupied prior to, at a minimum, the affordable housing beginning construction. And some of those triggers will be set by what the council mandates in their approval of their affordable housing plan, which is a council action that will be tied to this when we bring the project to the city council.
Okay. Are you not able to tell us what that flexibility is?
Well, right now, there's a condition specific to it. Sam and Adam probably know the specific condition.
Yes, so we can't build all of the market rate units until the affordable's begun. So it's not intended to be something where we could build a project and say, the affordable would need to be started before the rest of the community's done. And that's in addition to the 33 ADUs that we're building that we think would be either affordable rentals for the owners or they'd allow multi-generational families that we are building simultaneously with the rest of the project.
Those are being built or those are optional?
The ADUs are optional, but it's an option that we see people likely utilizing and we're prepared to build them.
I just want to clarify this because they are listed as optional, but it's at the city's option.
Okay.
So we are absolutely willing to build them. A lot of cities that we work in really love ADUs. Some cities are like, we don't want more, this is the right amount. And we are being cognizant that we have asked for a density bonus to allow above the 15 dwelling units an acre. So it's really what you guys want to see here. I think the ADUs are cool because they offer like a unusual path to homeownership. So somebody who is maybe a first-time home buyer, our target market is first-time home buyers and young families. So someone who's a first-time home buyer, let's say they have like a $3,000 a month mortgage with a ADU rental income, that becomes a $2,000 a month mortgage. So it's an interesting way to create more organic affordability without a deed restriction. But if that's not something that the city wants to see, we're willing to remove them from the scope. Mm-hmm. The utility studies and all the CEQA studies were done with the ADU. So either way, it's, please feel free to let us know what you'd like to see.
Okay. I guess I'm a little confused. When I read it, I figured it was at the option of the buyer, so it's at the option of who?
So just, City Ventures is saying they're willing to essentially not build out all the infrastructure internal to each unit to allow ADUs if the city's concerned about them. My perspective is every single one of these homeowners absolutely has the right under state law to put in an ADU.
Right.
I think having a certain number of units with that flexibility definitely supports the city. But what City Ventures has offered, based on the perspectives they hear from different cities they work in, is if some cities are like, we don't want extra ADUs, they can back out some of the infrastructure that makes it easy or not offer it as an option to in their sales.
Right.
But
if we want to maybe reduce the density a little bit by not facilitating the development of ADUs.
City Ventures has offered that.
Gotcha. Okay. And if they are built, it's still within those bonuses that are allowed within the overall density.
Yeah, ADUs, to me, I know folks love to talk about ADUs and everything that they've said is absolutely accurate, but from the staff perspective, we don't even consider them in the density calculations.
Okay.
We're not allowed to legally.
Okay. And can you just clarify a little bit on, I understand the building code requirements for ADU access, not ADU, ADA access, and how there's something different in the planning code, and that was a little lost on me, and this is maybe a more question for Noah. Can you maybe clarify that point?
I believe our zoning code requires 10% of all units built in multifamily housing to have, to be ground floor access. I believe that's the standard, so, and, the issue is just the design of a, you know, of a condominium or a townhome doesn't put all the living space on the ground floor. So potentially there could be, depending on interpretation, that could be seen as a conflict with the zoning standard. So they have a right to request that. I think it's somewhat subject to interpretation. And then again, the intent behind ground floor units is not just ADA, but also kind of, you know, what's called universal design, or thinking about all different types of people who are going to be living there and aging in place, all those things. It's a great goal, but the building code has several mandates that they're going to have to implement as a part of construction that will get to some of the same things. Not all, but again, they have a right to request that waiver, and I think that ground floor requirement was kind of more envisioning the types of multifamily housing we had built through the 80s and 90s in Cotati, and not necessarily some of the more dense multifamily housing we're seeing nowadays, especially condominiums, where they do go more vertical, multi-level, just to take advantage and be more efficient with the use of square footage and construction.
Okay, so that was a zoning requirement above and beyond what's required within the building code for ADA access.
May I add something to that? So ADUs by law have to be ADA accessible, and the homes that they're in also have to be ADA accessible. So by a minimum, the CBC requires a 10% ADA accessibility. The planning code requires that those be single story. Obviously, these are 3-story, right? And so that was the conflict.
Okay.
But if you have the ADUs, you do meet that 10%. Because we've made them optional, we've kind of created the waiver. But if we do the ADUs, you also have 33 ADA accessible townhomes, which is higher than the 10% required by the CBC. So we could, you know, guarantee higher accessibility, and then 100% of all the open spaces and the affordable rentals have to be ADA accessible as well.
Okay. Thank you. So we talked about there's 24 affordable housing units that are going to be required in order to meet the bonus. And then you're proposing 20 more additional on top of that. And do you mind kind of walking me through the logic behind that?
So we had originally proposed as like part of the, you know, let's make this an attractive offer to do 10 more, so 34 total below market rate units instead of the 24. But in talking with Burbank, there is a critical mass that really helps achieve the funding, and that's how we got to the 44. So I think it does really help with RENA. It makes it kind of cool and hopefully works for everyone.
Great, thank you. Getting near the end here. Then I always ask community notification questions. You guys had a community meeting, only one person showed up. How was that noticed and timing and all of that?
Yeah, we sent it out to everyone within 500 feet of the site, and then also everyone who is a resident or owner of the cottages.
Yeah.
Frankly, I think a lot of the folks from the cottages didn't show because we had a lot of community engagement with them on the Cotati Village 1 and 2 projects, and we knew about Redwood Row at that time, and we were showing them that project as well. And one of the main things we heard during that engagement period on Cotati Village was a concern that it was apartments. One of the main concerns of the cottages, because they are townhomes or condominiums, they're ownership units, they were concerned with the number of rental units being built in their neighborhood. And so I think they actually were very supportive of additional for sale units being built to kind of build out the vision that they were thinking would be built in the neighborhood when they bought their homes. Mm-hmm. So I think that was why a lot of people didn't choose to come to that meeting. The person who did come was the vice president from their HOA. So his name's Howard. He was kind of a conduit for us to speak to them. And he was indicated general support for the project and didn't come back to staff with any additional concerns.
That brings me to another question. Are all these going to be for sale? Is there any plan to rent any of them, or what's the ownership plan for the
For the market rate unit, the plan is for all of them to be for sale.
Yeah. And then
Except the ADUs, the owner would have the option of renting if they want.
Yeah. Okay. That's all the questions I have. Thanks for your guys' answers.
Thank you for your presentation, and this looks like a really lovely opportunity, and I want to live there, except the only place I can live is the affordable housing area. I don't want to live there. And the reason I don't want to live there is because it feels like it's being shoved off to this area over here, all by itself, kind of segregated. I'm concerned that you've already initiated something with Burbank Housing. I'm concerned about Burbank Housing I just am. I mean, my concern is of the affordable housing. And my question to you is, because I want to live there, I want to have an opportunity to purchase my unit just like everybody else. I want to have a condominium that I can purchase. So how can we make this work so we don't have this affordable housing element and we have everybody all the same and have affordability in some of the housing? To me, I appreciate you coming here and saying you're thinking out of the box. You are my neighbor. You are the guy who's riding his dog to the dog park and his kids to school. I appreciate that. And I want to be the guy, the low-income guy, who's not known as the low-income guy because I'm not living over there in that area over here. I'm your neighbor, and you don't know. We're all the same. So to me, gosh, I would love an opportunity for a very low-income person to be a homeowner in your development. I would love that. How can we make this work?
It's a really good question, Commissioner Berman. The goal here is to create a really neat community with the amenities we've talked about. The way we see this underutilized land working as a project is the way we've proposed it with the concentrated affordable. I think we, with our salespeople, can definitely get creative about understanding now with ADUs and the way mortgages work, how someone could potentially qualify for a mortgage using that ADU income. The affordable units are also going to be 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. The intention is to allow the community to very much integrate. So the emergency vehicle access coming off of 116 also has a trail associated with it. So that trail, which is kind of one of the spines of the network, is intended to integrate. We have the 2 public parks as well as the commercial establishments in the frontage. So I've lived in townhouse communities before. I've lived in some where there are integrated affordable units. People know which units those are. The intention here is to create a bit of a community, and it's not lost on us that Cotati is not a huge city. It's less than 8,000 people. This project, and I think the housing element has like a little over 2.5 residents, like 2.7 per unit. So us coming in and building 134 units, we're talking about adding like 6% to the city's existing population. Community Development Director Hausch and I had talked about another site previously where we wanted to make a cool like rooftop beer garden, and at that time, and that was proximate to downtown, it was clever and creative thinking of how can we make it so that housing in combination with commercial is going to activate this space. I think 16 commercial units, the way we're doing them too, they're a little over 500 square feet. You could have a cottage kitchen or small business come and occupy those spaces. You could combine them. That 10,000 square feet of commercial area, I think, is going to build community right there at the trail. So we're hopeful between the dog park, the other park, the trails, and the commercial, that this is going to be a well-integrated, desirable place to be. And what we're presenting you to is something that we have the financing for, that we're confident we can implement, and we want to bring to Cotati.
And how can we make it work? What number would you need? If this commission said you don't have to have 15%, if this commission suggested that it be 10%, would you be willing to make affordable housing at 10%? If we made that type of an offer, would you be willing to just throw that?
Commissioner Berman, just to be clear, the city council has the authority in that type of offer. So if the commission wants to
Okay.
make a recommendation or
Okay,
an element
well,
of their recommendation.
if we were willing to make a recommendation to the city council of 10%, would that be enough for your bottom line? Because I think that there's something about ghettoizing the low-income people in this beautiful thing that you're making that is difficult for me. A one-bedroom is 550 square feet. A garage in the condominiums is 500-plus square feet. So a car gets the same amount of space as a human. I'm just having a hard time putting this in my head.
Sure. And I think, well, first, Carla, would you be able to go to slide 118?
Yeah.
Thank you. And we didn't actually have 118 slides, but we put the, we anticipated Q&A. So I think for us, Commissioner Berman, we really wanted to, we started with inclusionary. Our first application had it. We do inclusionary. I'm a planning commissioner where I live. We do inclusionary on a lot of our projects. It's really hard with your municipal code to do it here. But we worked really, really hard to try to make sure, I want to get to the slide, to make sure that it doesn't feel separate and that it doesn't feel ghettoized. And so I want to kind of look at a site plan and talk through. And then as you were talking, I had kind of an idea of something physically that we could do. But at this point, I don't think we're in a position, we've lined up our financing. We're working with our Wells Fargo revolver. I don't think we're in a position to get rid of the apartments. It may be easier to exit out of the slideshow. Perfect. So this is something that our landscape architect puts together to show the location of fences and walls. And what we really wanted to do here, thank you, what we really wanted to do here was make sure that things were feeling like they had really thoughtful, programmatic, functional adjacencies, right? So that you weren't having your garage facing the affordable, or that it didn't feel like it was bifurcated. So there's no fencing between the project. All of the pathways connect both sites. Everybody gets to use the park. When we started doing this, honestly, the central common open space, there wasn't a park proposed, but as we've kind of iterated with staff, that was an idea that came up. And one thing, I think, looking at the rendering and just the front entrance, I'm trying to figure out how best to describe it, but the front entrance to the apartment building is right across from the homes that are directly west. It's right across from homes, not across from a street. And one thing that I think would be really nice is to add some sort of very intentional, decorative paving that created more walkability and connection there. And then we could do additional 360-degree architecture on those building ends that face it, so it feels like they kind of bridge the gap across this street. I'm hoping that that can make it more palatable.
Well, I'm looking at your drawing right here. I see
Sure.
that you've got these, and forgive me,
Sure.
And when I looked at it, I thought, oh my God, look at those massive trees that's blocking the affordable housing. We don't even want to see you people. And that's what I saw. So-
Okay. So the tree, like the regularity of the trees comes more from like urban planning. And if you look at the rendering, and I don't know, Carla, if we can, I'm kind of asking you to jump around a little bit, but if we could go to the rendering, it's designed in a way where you still absolutely see it, but I'm happy to take those trees and turn them into like shrubbery or low planting and create, again, more of like something that feels like a portal and move those trees interior to the site so that we still maintain the same amount that we're proposing.
Well, and then I spoke with somebody at Burbank Housing today, Charles Street Village. I said, would you like to have a massive tree blocking your building? And she said, absolutely yes. I would love that. So, you know, maybe,
I'm a fellow tree hugger, so the trees that are proposed for removal on this site are only proposed for removal because they're in the Highway 116
Right.
right-of-way or the volunteer eucalyptus that is in the middle of the road. So if you take a look at the rendering, this is true to scale for the incidence of the trees. And so the idea, again, you can see the trellis, the white trellis between the buildings that connect this. That's that entry that I'm, you know, right where that bicyclist is. That's where I think we should do some like super cool paving and like, again, create something on both sides of the street that make this feel very like intentional and like it's connected.
so if it turns out that we have an affordable housing building, I wonder about having covered parking. I wonder about that. At least we can have covered parking.
It's something that we can definitely entertain. We're a solar all-electric developer, and it's certainly a cool opportunity to like add solar panels, right? So we'll get with Burbank, we'll get with the civil and the architect, make sure it fits, and then we'll have that answer prepared for staff.
And can we work with somebody other than Burbank? There's
So
the,
the city can't mandate who they partner with.
okay, but can you open it up? Can you, like Freebird?
We can, and then the other thing that I want to kind of just double down on that's part of the condition is that City Ventures is responsible for the fact that this building gets built, right? So whether there's a partner or not, like we're the backstop and we're accountable, and it's our bonds and our certificates of occupancy on the line. So we're here and we're going to make sure that it feels good. And I'm just writing your note on covered
Okay,
parking.
well, the affordable housing part will have the need for people to be managed, yes, managed. And if we integrated the affordable housing, and if the council could offer you something less, then nobody would need to be managed. We could just live side by side, which to me would be a beautiful thing for this project, really.
Sure. Thank you for your comments.
Tagging on to something that both of you commented on, the Arborway that you said maybe do some type of a decorative feature to try to, would it be possible? I mean, I know in part of the project you're using the bricks with the overhead lighting. Is it possible to do a pathway across the street to connect to that sidewalk with maybe the bricks and maybe the overhead lighting, just to try to pull it, make it more cohesive?
So absolutely the bricks. We will check the string lighting with the fire department because this is an Appendix D aerial apparatus road. So we'll have to ask their permission, but we're absolutely willing to propose it. I think it would look great.
Yeah, I just think that just having the sidewalk there shows that connectivity, you know, because you're going to have those people from, you know, the affordable housing going down to the park, going down to the swimming pool and using the dog park, and it would just maybe make a little more connection. So that way there, it wasn't look like it's over here and everybody else is over here.
I think is a great idea, Commissioner Gullardi.
Were you talking about the string lights?
I'm sorry?
Were you talking about the string lights that, or is that what you were talking about?
It's like
Yeah, the overhead lights that they're using between the housing that's got the brick on the ground. I mean, just something that would just, even if it wasn't the overhead lighting, because I don't know if that would be high enough and they'd be able to have vehicles, you know, emergency vehicles or whatever pass through it, but just even having the brick sidewalk, it just ties it together more, I think.
Yeah, using the same brick as the Booners. I have a number of questions. So for the apartment, will they have the same access to all of the amenities that the townhouses will have? The pool, the community room, et cetera?
They would have access to the public parks, but our plan is for the market rates and their HOA to pay for the maintenance of the pool and assume the liability of the pool.
Okay, so I'm a bit confused how they're part of the project if they don't have the same access to all the amenities that the other project residents have access to.
I understand your question, Chair Moffett. Yes, so they would have access to some of the amenities. The pool is proposed to be paid for and maintained by the HOA and its dues.
So they're not part of the HOA?
No, they don't have to. They don't have to pay city fees. And actually, staff gave us a heads up that there was going to be a question about the pool. So I think City Ventures has no issue with opening everything up to everybody. And right now, the pool is the only amenity that's not open, right? So it's not just like the public parks, it's all of the pathways, everything else is all integrated into the project. When we called our DRE expert, that's the state, there was some confusion on whether the state policies would allow that or recognize that as a reasonable, I can't remember what the word is that is in their policy, but he was gonna follow up for us and let us know. So I know that we can address that to council,
So
if that's a
the-
recommendation to open up the pool.
I think the confusion is just how would residents in the below market rate units participate and be members in the HOA? And so the DRE is Department of Real Estate, and so they approve all HOA CCNRs. And so basically there's kind of a lot of law. It's a little bit of a complex issue, but I think if the commission wants to provide direction that shall absolutely be the case, subject to interpretation of the law, and if it can be. The only other issue would be that would affect affordability, but that's also something that gets considered when deciding what income, based on all the costs of living in a unit, an individual or a family fits into which category, if that makes sense.
Not really.
So
I don't understand why if you're already having the HOA fees spread across the for sale units that are members of the HOA, how much extra cost would it be to simply allow access to the apartment complex?
So for the pool, I don't think it comes down to cost. I don't think it's a cost question. I think it's liability. And this is way above my legal pay grade. So we've taken the question, we've put it out to our DRE attorney, and we're gonna have an answer prepared. And we understand that the commission may recommend something to council.
Well,
Right,
and does this apply to the ADUs as well? The ADU can use the pool, but the affordable housing cannot. Let me just say that, yes.
But it looks like you're gonna work on having the affordable housing also use the pool and maybe at a reduced rate than the condos for their HOA membership or even a
but I think there's
$0 rate?
I think there's a question of if it is able to be required ultimately. And we don't know the answer to that yet. We can say that it's mandated, but then if the liability issues basically create a problem with the HOA being able to allow non-membership use of their amenities, there's just a lot there, and we don't have a specific answer as to how all that would work.
You were saying something about the union driving up costs and how that would have.
Yeah, so I'm sorry,
Can
so
you
what I was
elaborate
trying
on
to say
that
is, the full cost of living in a unit gets determined when trying to figure out what income classification you fall into. So not just the rent, but also your utility costs, X, Y, and Z all get stacked, and then you can only pay up to 33% of your income as your living costs to qualify for an individual affordable housing unit. So if HOA fees were stacked onto that, just know that would be part of the formula. It's kind of a side issue from the bigger topic that Chair Moffat's bringing up as to how residents of those below market rate units could participate in that swimming pool amenity, which is owned and managed by the HOA.
Right.
The other option, if it really creates like a disparity feeling, is like we could replace the pool with a different amenity that wouldn't create a liability issue. But again, I would request respectfully that we let the DRE folks let us know if we can do it, because maybe this is as easy as just, yes, we can do it, right? Yeah.
And you said that question's into them?
We've heard this question through staff today. We called them around 5 p.m. and they should have
They haven't
an
gotten back to you
answer.
yet?
He gave me a very preliminary, angry, like, there's so many reasons why you wouldn't want to do this. And then we kind of talked for a while, and he's like, okay, let me look into the policies. The DRE is governed by, I guess, policies and not laws. So I'm a little above my.
So just say, this issue was raised to staff today. I raised it to City Ventures. City Ventures CEO is aware of it and is supportive, but we don't want to guarantee that, yes, that will happen in today's meeting, or even a condition that guarantees it, because it may not be something that's viable.
Got it. But you recognize it's the moral thing to do.
I see, I wholly want to make sure that there's parity here. So I think we're saying the same thing.
Okay. Let's talk about parking. We love parking here.
Yes.
Love the commercial/park parking. Will residents be able to park there overnight?
Once I get started.
As it stands right now, we would be putting up signage that distinguishes between how the different areas would work, and we'd finalize that with staff. It's set up now where there'd be for the commercial and the parks during operating hours of those businesses. And then I don't see any issue why we couldn't allow residential parking during off times.
Yeah, we like flex parking around here.
We're happy to do it. The way staff has kind of asked us to do this throughout the planning process was to stripe it specifically for commercial and park use only. And then residential only parking would be striped differently. But again, we're happy, like we recognize TDM measures, so we're happy to do it however you guys see fit. We did park enough individually for all of the uses. No one's like counting shared parking.
Right. I know we've had a lot of parking discussions around here. And one of the things that we kind of keep coming back to is this idea of flex parking. If you have your commercial only 2 hours, blah, 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 during business operating hours, but then residents can park between, 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. overnight. There's no restrictions. So you're open to that?
Totally.
Yeah. When I was a planner, I helped staff writing a city's parking requirements. We were mindful here in working with your staff too, that while density bonus law allows developers to propose a maximum number of spaces, we're coming in well above that. So I think we're only required to provide 268 parking spaces here, but we're proposing 342. We also appreciate that the city's parking code says, and don't provide any more than's needed. So our goal here would be to create a individually sustainable parking sharing situation, and we'll absolutely work diligently with staff and the community to make it balance between those objectives.
Okay. We talked about trash for the townhouses. I don't think we talked about trash for the apartment complex. I told you, I got all kinds of trash questions.
They have their own, in the corner of the parking lot, there's an actual garbage structure.
Was it just this one at the very back corner?
Right there, yeah.
Doesn't that seem far? Shouldn't there be two?
Only
more.
We can absolutely put it where the commission deems fit. I typically like to move them further away because I feel like trash is smelly and attracts raccoons. And so personally, I would like to live further, but it's a subjective, this is a parking lot, right? Like we can move it anywhere. And then the commercial trash is in trash rooms within the building. So there's not a separate, because I don't like the vermin.
That's fair.
Yeah.
This is some very friendly
my-
trash talk.
My only concern, and it could just be that I can't visualize exactly how far you would need to walk, but my concern is so you have an elderly person, or it's just having to walk all the way across the parking lot to do your trash. Seems far to me. I don't know if anyone else kind of agrees, or if everyone thinks, I'm open to, it's just something to
And
consider.
we'll give that a close look, Chair Moffett. I know sometimes apartment buildings, and this one, the design's not fully finalized, will have storage within them. So you could have your day-to-day trash go in there, and then that's wheeled, and you would use the larger dumpsters if you have like a move out or move in.
Okay, great. And then parks. So I love the idea of having kind of turnkey parks for the city that are open to everyone. To me, a park is not turnkey and open to everyone unless all of our signage is updated to include that park, and there's some sort of outreach to the rest of the community that there is a park that's open to everyone. Otherwise, it's kind of this little bitty secret, and we're a little town already. We don't need secrets from each other. That's not how we work. So what is your proposal to update the rest of our signs and to inform the rest of our community?
There's a condition of approval that we agree to. We agree to all the conditions that staff's recommending, that we do need to sign those parks. So we would collaborate with the city to incorporate the appropriate signage there.
And would that be incorporated in our other signs that show parks?
I think it would, and every city is different, but we do a lot of kind of public parks on our projects. And what's super cool about this is it's maintained by the HOA, so the city has no maintenance obligation. So all the cost is borne by us as the project. We just did this in Nevada, we've done this in Daly City, we've done this in San Jose, and typically what we do is once the easement for public access is recorded, it goes on the city's parks website. We make sure that we're matching the signage requirements for the city, and then everybody has always updated their materials. So I would highly anticipate staff here would ask us to do the same.
Okay.
I can say too, Chair Moffett, when I was walking through the city today, like there's some nice parks that are just integrated, and I found them to be inviting just by seeing the green space. I kind of hope the trail that we have coming off of the frontage improvements will be like a yellow brick road that tells people there's more to see here, come be part of it.
Great. Did you notice our fantastic wayfinding signs?
I did, and that was how I found the School Street Tunnel. I wasn't going to go there except for those signs, so thank you for that.
Okay.
I also
Those ones that might need a little updating in their legends to show the new park. So
Sounds
that'll
great.
be part of what you'll do?
We can do that.
Okay, great.
Can I just ask a question about the dog park? What's the difference between the ADA, the ACE, whatever, what is it? The condominiums paying for that or keeping it maintained, and the pool use? So when can they decide you're not going to use this park anymore?
I asked that same question to the state because I said the HOA is already maintaining the park. Why wouldn't the pool be just like an easy yes? And again, it's not a cost, it's a liability. The CCNRs and the easements that are shown on the tentative map on the park, so the tentative map shows public access easements. Those will be recorded in perpetuity with the final map. The CCNRs will require all of the different things that the city wants to see and provide step-in rights if for some reason the maintenance isn't up to standard. And if the city wants to enter into a separate agreement, we've done that before as well.
Okay. Fabulous.
Real quick, go back to the posting question.
Oh, Vice Chair Long, can you please turn on your microphone?
Got it, Carla. I was trying to find the button. Are they going to be able to update all the signs?
Yeah, so typically the sign, wayfinding sign is a city project. We definitely update all of our signage material, or advertising materials, digital materials that identify signs. If the commission were to condition the project, which it seems like the developers agreed to contribute towards wayfinding updates, that's fine, but the last time we updated the wayfinding signage, it was a significant timeline for the city to do so because there's a lot of input and thought about what's appropriate for wayfinding, and just know that it may not happen overnight.
Just want a little arrow.
But the website
Park.
could be done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we could definitely add things easily. I just know As
I
a
wanna
person
redesign
who was partially implementing that, it was shockingly long to get it accomplished.
like to volunteer us and Director Hausch for projects.
I have more questions. I want to echo everyone's kind of comments that I like the design. I really do. It's well thought out. I think that you got kind of the character of Cotati a bit better than some other designs that have been put in front of us lately. So really appreciate that. One of the things that I always ask for, and I have yet to receive, so you could be the first one, so exciting, is I don't see any public art. And I would love to see, I mean, it could be something that a kid from our local elementary school, Thomas Page Academy, which is right on your side of town, does.
Okay.
But something.
I can't guarantee what it is. We'll bring something fun to design review board as like a proposal. We're doing like, Adam referred to the fog collectors we're doing on like our project in Sebastopol, which have like tree shape, like mesh woven into them. Our project in Nevada, we got a local artist to do pedestrian archways. So we will look into something cool, and maybe it's handprints from the local school. I don't know, but like we'll take a stab.
Okay.
Because I'm also pro-public art. I think it's wonderful.
Maybe they'll replace the pool with a giant sculpture.
I'd be down.
Okay.
Then I'll be, that person that took away the pool. Again, more questions. What is kind of the timeline for development? You said you have funding in place. It's awesome.
So if we get approval from council, we would apply for permits pretty immediately. We would be applying with the same design team for everything at the same time. So it's not like the market rate and the affordable are going to be on different timelines. The same design team, same submittal date. And then it depends on how quickly you guys permit things. So I would anticipate like 6 to 8 months is typical for what we see. This is a bigger project, but I mean, staff has been really awesome to work with. They're tough but fair. And I think, we'll just do our part to make sure that we give complete submittals that don't, leave out 10 of the things on your checklist.
Perfect. Speaking of development, I saw all of the development requirements, et cetera. One of the things I didn't see, and this is because I lived across the street from a development, so it's just top of mind for me, is pest abatement when you start digging. And especially going towards the Cotati cottages, since it's really, the other local residents that are there. Do you have anything in plans? Anything in your plans to kind of mitigate some of those fantastic mice or rats or whoever that need a new home going into your neighbors' homes?
So we have found that this is more of a problem when there are existing structures or a lot of shrubbery on site. You know what I mean? Like a lot of places to, I'm gonna say nest. So I don't anticipate it being a super large project because this is a site that the property owner, George, regularly maintains. But we are installing construction fencing, and that will make sure that it's not going towards the houses. I live next to a construction project, and I just paid Terminex an insane amount of money. So it's a different story.
Okay. And then, last question, if you can believe it. Well, one more comment first. Take out all the eucalyptus you want. They're a terribly invasive species. And then last question is, you mentioned that you were working with NOAA several years back on a rooftop bar or a beer garden. I would like to know what happened to that and when you're bringing it back.
It's not my fault either. In that instance, and this is, I think, part of what makes this infill site such a good one. It was a small piece of property, and it was a property owner that decided they didn't want to sell their land. So we were ready to go, but the property owner in Cotati didn't want to sell their land for housing at that time.
All right, fair enough.
We're trying still, though.
Okay, before we leave,
Well,
or
we've got public comment and then
before,
discussion, too.
before public comment, I will just say, in our affordable housing building, I would propose the smallest unit be 700 square feet. I spoke with a affordable housing specialist today who agreed with me that 550 is too small. So I don't know what you can do, but 700 is approximately what the units are over at Charles Street Village. Seems like a sweet number. 550?
So we can sure look at it. I think we were really trying to stay at 3 stories and not create a 4th story because I feel like it maybe would stick out. But we can look at it. There's maybe some creative building solutions. Can I ask you to repeat the number that you heard was optimal?
700 square feet.
700. Okay, I can't guarantee that we're going to hit it, but we'll try to make them closer to that number.
Thank you. If there's no more questions from the commission, we'll open it up to public comment.
Not a question, just a comment. I would definitely be in favor of having the ADUs in this project. I think that gives homeowners options, especially with it's very difficult to, for families to either find a place for their parents or for their kids. I think that's really important. I'm also encouraged to the fact that you're looking at actually building this project, because some of the ones we've done in the past, people are saying, well, wait a minute, you approved that. How come nothing's happening? Well, it's out of our hands. We can't force somebody to build anything. So that made me, hearing you say that made me feel really good.
I have one question that I recognize you might not have the answer to, but what's the anticipated price point of these market rate homes and also the affordable?
Sure. So we're anticipating that the homes will be in the $500,000 to $600,000 range. The ADUs, while not deed restricted, the rents that we would anticipate from those would qualify as deed restricted rents, even though there's not a deed restriction on them because it's not a separate property line. And then I believe, so we got underwriting from Burbank, and it looks like in the $1,000 to low $2,000 per month for the affordable was what they're anticipating. Again, if interest rates go to 10%, people can afford something different. If interest rates go to 4%, people can afford something different, and the market will kind of dictate where those end up.
Okay, thank you. And for the record, I do appreciate that you've designed a project that will preserve the oak tree, because if it were going to be cut down, I would 99.9% vote no on this project. It's a beautiful tree. So thank you for that.
Thank you. We'll open up to public comment in the room first, and then we'll go to the Zoom afterwards. Come on down.
Hi, I'm Mike Connell. I'm an architect and former member of the Cotati Design Review Board. And I want to commend everybody in this room for an amazing project. The developers, design staff, planning staff. I'm pretty impressed, and I would have loved to have something come across 7 years ago when I was a member of the Design Review Board. I do have a couple of comments and or questions. My first one was in regards to the ADUs. And as you would like to make the garages bigger, I would like to make the garages, or suggest the garages a little smaller so the optional ADUs could be more than 310 square feet. And proposing that one of the 2 garage spaces could be a compact space. And probably reducing the depth to 20 or 22 down to 16 or something like that, so that the ADUs, you're talking about a 500 square foot space being small, 300 square feet is a hotel room. So on a practical note in regards to that, since the spaces will be optionally developed, it's, from a construction standpoint, if plumbing could be installed, you're already putting the bathrooms with plumbing for the sink and or.
Oh, excuse me,
you're
could you
doing all
please
electric,
speak into
so-
the microphone so people online can hear? Thank you.
What's that? Oh, okay.
Yeah, speak into
So
the
anyway,
mic, that way the
so,
online folks can hear.
more plumbing the better, instead of ripping up concrete later on and having it all be optional and being a mess later on. And then as I understand the option, it would just be whoever buys and comes to planning and says, I want to put in an ADU. I had thought before coming here is that if they could even be expanded into the garage further and have bike parking, that would be something that just, perhaps staff could, or planning staff could suggest. You could just deal on it sounds like everybody's willing to work on it on a sort of an informal basis. So if that could be possible. So that's it on the ADUs. On the pool, I hadn't thought about it before, but I think your idea of putting in a sculpture there, having it be a water park with fountains that shoot up as the kids run through this. These are 3-bedroom units. There's going to be kids. Have it be a fun place like the Children's Museum up in Santa Rosa, where there's water, there's kids. It's a lot of fun. And skip right past that liability issue, but have
30
water.
seconds.
So anyway, that's a suggestion there. And then I had one other, but my pen ran out of ink. So I'll close it there. I'm glad to be here representing the community, and I'm glad for all of your input. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, one other thing. I found a discrepancy on
Oh,
the
you're,
IRA. I mean on the.
you're unfortunately out of time.
Okay.
And I have to be very strict with time.
I got it.
Okay.
We already got it taken care of. The scale is way off. It's like a mile. It says it's a mile off.
I'm so glad to follow this gentleman rather than the earlier gentleman we had speaking tonight. Adrienne Lobby, I'm a Cotati citizen and resident. I have a bunch of questions and thoughts. I'm just going to run through them and hope somebody will take notes. I'd like to know how many low-income rentals we already have in the pipeline, rentals that are already, fully subsidized. I'd like to know about parking. For the mixed-use storefront, how many parking spaces are planned, and then how many parking spaces for each of the low-income units? And in general, because what I understand is that with you have an ADU, you have maybe a 2-car garage, but you fill it up with other things, and then you have all these cars parking all over the place. That's very typical right now. So the number of parking overall would be good. I'm very concerned about the separation of low income. I don't think that a nice brick walkway is going to do it, sorry. And I think it would just be totally weird to have a pool. Like, how are you going to, no, you can't come in here, you little child. I'm sorry, your best friend is there having a good time, but you can't. And who's going to police that? It sounds just totally weird. The size of the units, 550 square feet, too small. You have to have a place for your vacuum cleaner. And where are the ADU people going to have their vacuum cleaners? And, an overnight guest now and then? This is all, to me, too small. And we should cut the garages down and make more parking. I don't know. Disability access, these are 3 floors. Are there going to be elevators or any elevators? How are you going to get your furniture up and down even to the 3rd floor? There seems to be like there needs to be some kind of elevator thing. Financing for the low income, I don't understand. I couldn't quite follow whether the financing is going to be done by the low income developer or if it's done by this group. That's not clear to me. And then how is it ongoingly funded? Because low income, it's market rate. They need some kind of ongoing funding. One more thing I had. Oh yeah, the ADUs are. They were described as costing about $1,000 for rental. So that would, help people with their mortgage. That sounds great.
30
except
seconds.
You're basically paying $1,000 a month for a room with everything you need to live in that one room, a bed, a kitchen project, I don't know, maybe a microwave and a shower. You're going to pay $1,000 for that. Maybe that's the way of the world. But I don't think it's a great way. And I don't think we should set it up to be that if we can help it. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience? No, let's open it up to our Zoom attendees.
Thank you, Chair Moffett. Lori, you have the floor.
I have an extra minute, by the way. I'm qualified. Okay, first thing, I put this project on Nextdoor, and nobody had heard of it. I had over 2,000 views, and all the concern was about the intersection. I'm understanding from Noah here now that there seems to be a delay in Cotati Village 1 and Cotati Village 2, and that the fees we're going to be paying for, the impact fees we're going to be paying, and also the 1 million in grant for the intersection is in sort of jeopardy right now because of the new, and it's a $5 to $6 million, and we have no funding for it, and we're using almost all of our resources, gas, taxes, everything for this, and so that's a very big concern. Nobody uses the bus stop there, and I've lived here 54 years. And as long as that bus stop's been there, it's too dangerous. There is, Route 26 comes every 2 hours. There is no bus over to Target or anywhere in Rohnert Park directly. That's a big problem if you're going to put all those people there. The sandy loam soil. I think I read that you're going to import dirt, but basically that area has been a swamp for many years. My brother used to take his BB gun and shoot gophers out there when he was young. And we've seen what happened with the Cotati Hotel. It's part of the Laguna. There's underground streams. There's the west side here we've had multiple times of sandy loam basically being quicksand and costing the city more. And now even Ken Molinaro laughs at, we call it the Cotati Hotel site, Lake Molinaro. We have a code enforcement scandal happening, of which Mr. Hausch is one of the players. And how can you build something where there's no code enforcement? How are the standards going to be done? We don't have a staff to keep the building code, making sure this is a safe in the code to the building codes. Let's see, you're planning 3 stories. Rancho Adobe Fire District does not have a ladder truck. There is one, City of Rohnert Park has one over by the casino, but in a general emergency, that is a big problem with the ladder truck. And also paratransit buses on things like the Warner Road. You have to have access enough
30 seconds.
Enough for a lift to go down and a wheelchair to get on. I'm concerned about that. And I have seen the City Ventures one up on Round Barn, and I'm just concerned about their history with traffic issues such as this, because they built it on Fountain Grove with all of that when it right after the fires, after there was a problem that
Thank you.
of people
Your time's up.
evacuating. Thank you.
Speaking to our Zoom attendees, if you'd like to make a public comment, please use the raise hand icon or dial *9. Chair Moffett, that will end Zoom public comment.
Thank you, Carla. Yeah.
Let's chat.
These came up for the developer, some extra questions that came to mind. It was actually when you were kind of talking about the string lights going over the path. Is there, and I'm sure it's in here somewhere in the 500 pages, but a lighting plan for along the pathways to kind of show, you know, what type of lighting will be in place along the pathways or the streets to kind of understand what that might look like conceptually?
Good question, Vice Chair Long. So the way we'll typically approach that is with a combination of bollard lights and then lights on the building. In this instance, we have the lights on the buildings prepared already, and then the bollards would be something we'd provide to the city as part of the improvement plans for that permit process.
Do you have any in the drawings or anything that kind of conceptually show? I saw some on the building. I think I see like some sign lights in some of them, but I just kind of wanted to get an idea of what it would look like.
For this slide, if you're able to pull it up, Carla, that shows our architecture. I think it was like the 14th or 15th one. Yep, that's the one. If you're able to make that larger. This shows some conceptual images for what the lights on the outside could be, and we're happy to receive input and work on the final details with those. The goal, and I don't know if any of you have studied CPTED before, crime prevention through environmental design. When I was a planner, we would collaborate with police departments to make sure we're designing places for the good guys rather than the bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not illuminating it so it's a Christmas tree and blinding everyone. You're doing down-directed lighting, but you're making sure to provide illumination in, say, the VUNERs so that the people who are there trying to do good things and under the spotlight are safe.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask a question about lighting? Will the sidewalks that are adjacent to public streets, will those have our normal Cotati lights?
We would adhere to the city's requirements, yeah.
Those are the bollard lights that you were referencing, or is that different?
They're like those.
The overhead, the tall streetlights?
Old-fashioned
Decorative streetlights.
Oh,
streetlights. They're.
I like them.
On the topic of lighting as well, and I asked this of Noah in a question that I had, and I can't recall the answer, so I'll just ask it again. The string lighting on the VUNERs, are those expected to be on like all night, or are they gonna turn off at a certain hour? Like what's?
It's a good question. We're flexible. At this point, that idea sort of came from, let's adhere to the concept of those ballots.
Yeah, they won't be on all night. So they have to be on a timer. All of the lighting for the whole project has to meet Title 24 and wet weather requirements. It's unfortunate that the one street light is underneath the text, so you can kind of see it. The two lights on the right are building lights for both the, you can see the signage lights on the very right, and then the main building light in the middle. But yes, we will make sure that we meet a required amount of foot candles, and yeah, we don't want it to feel like a parking lot. It will definitely go off at night. Those hours will be determined during construction drawings in accordance with city's policies.
Okay, thank you.
Lighting, something that would be more developed in the kind of the next phase?
Yeah, there's conditions of approval that mandate like dark sky compliant light fixtures, cutoff lenses to eliminate what's called light trespass. So basically you don't see the bulb shining, and that's done through final design review.
So we're not at that point yet where we're looking at actual placements of
Correct.
throughout the project.
It essentially is done as the project moves more into construction level. They actually start to site.
Yeah.
Because all the electricity, basically all the infrastructure gets laid on top of each other to make sure you don't have conflicts, and it gets more essentially clarified.
Will it come back before us at any point?
It will not.
Okay. Okay. And then when it comes to parking, is there any separation of parking of who's allowed to park where?
Yeah, that's the striping that I was referring to earlier. So it's, we've got, I think, 1 per 250, correct me if I'm off here, for the commercial. That's the city's requirement. And then we've got 2 per for each of the 3-bedroom homes. And then there's a 0.25 per guest parking space, which is what accounts for all of the surface parking here. And then there's a required parking space for the counts for the affordable. So we're 100% meeting all of the parking. But to the chair's point, typical TDM would allow us to kind of double count some of that. And, you know, as like one lever moves one way, the other goes the other, right? So like if we want to get rid of some asphalt and add more green space, we could absolutely do that. But I think we did not, you know, use the state parking waiver that is allowed to us. We're kind of open to what you guys would like to see.
I was kind of more wondering, is there, like, certain buildings have designated parking, or is it all, like, is there residents that are gonna have placards, or how is, it's all?
No, everybody has dedicated parking in the garages, and then the guest parking that's kind of dispersed throughout, that's gonna be straight for residential, is for any residents to park anywhere. There's no assigned parking besides what's in your garage.
So kind of, I'm actually super supportive of the project. I have a hard time with the fully being supportive of the concession to separate out the inclusionary housing based on the, you know, it being a financial burden. And I think I kind of want to wrap my head around that a little further, because it sounds like you're building them as a separate project. It's going on its own parcel, it's its own building, it has its own access rights. Doesn't have the same amenities, so it's hard to kind of say, oh, this is part of this project so we can get these density bonuses on these market value residences, while in practice it feels like it's a very separate project. And then to using it as a financing argument, so earlier you said that you already had financing lined up whether or not an affordable partner came in. And that seemed to be what was the financial, you called it a, what's the word they use in here? Identifying an actual cost reduction. It seems like really it would be, I guess, maybe just additional profit if you're able to get the financing partner to come in and assist you, and based on the way you're building it to make it more attractive to a lender. So it seems like you had said, we already have financing lined up. However, if we can do it this way, separating it out as its own separate project, we can get better financing terms, which would, you know, increase our profit, not necessarily increase our costs.
They're financed separately. So let me back up. The market rate is something that we have private financing for, and it's ready to go. Mm-hmm. The tax credits and the type of financing you get, whether an affordable housing partner builds this or we build it, those tax credits would be available to us, right? And so that's the difference in financing. Now, I totally feel what you're saying on the economic benefit. Like 5 years ago, we used to be able to, I said I'm a planning commissioner too, so we used to be able to ask for a pro forma on what the economic benefit was. I have shared some of that with staff, but to what the director kind of alluded to, HCD has commented that the applicant no longer needs to provide financing information to the general public. So I hope that answers your question.
Not really. I think what I'm trying to get at is, I don't know if this is like a really strong argument that the attorney's making in this letter. And the fact that it's saying that it's gonna result in a cost reduction, whereas it sounds like it's really just resulting in a profit increase if you're able to find an affordable housing by taking advantage of these tax credits.
I guess it also considers the alternative whereby that the units are not consolidated, and they were building 15% of the project as condominiums that were for sale, and they would be for sale at a loss because it costs more to build typically than you can sell it for. And so I think that's the argument that's being made. But again, if the commission has concerns.
But they don't say that in their letter.
The letter is analyzing.
Unless it's somewhere else in here.
No, you're right. The letter is analyzing whether that concession can be used under state density bonus law and how it complies. The financial argument is a different one, whereby the developer has said the cost to build those units and sell them at a loss would prohibit the financial viability of the project. And again, I would need to look at a lot of the details of what state density bonus law allows, and then reflect it to some of the information that we have discussed with the developer, but they're not required to share or make public under HCD's interpretation. And like, the city could go down the path of evaluating the pro forma of this developer to document this, but that would be, from staff standpoint, a direction the city council would take and provide to us, because there is a cost to that.
Sure.
And so if the commission is concerned about that, I would ask they put that in the recommendation. But I would say that's more, the affordable housing program and approval is the city council's purview. And so they want to be informed by the planning commissioner's perspective and concerns. But what we would not want to do is ask that be decided at this level.
I understand that. I understand that. Yeah, I do think it's a weak argument, and I think it's something we could make a recommendation on. I'm not sure if I really want to, because I am supportive of the project overall. And so, I don't know, yeah, something to consider.
Yeah, I guess to follow on that, like if we did want to make that recommendation to council, how would we go about doing that? It's my first day, so.
So it would kind of depend on how strongly the commission is feeling, right, on this issue. And then also, we need to get input from the city attorneys, which is underway, and it's going to be ready for the council's review. So one condition could be, planning commission recommends council evaluate the financial impacts of the proposed use of this concession to confirm conformance with density bonus law requirements. So that's one kind of bucket, kind of, I guess, philosophy that could be used in conditioning it. The other could be very much more specific in recommending the council go down the financial evaluation that is available to us under the law, but would require significant time and cost and add, to the process to getting this project a decision.
I think we also need to take into consideration that when we're looking at our RHNA numbers, and I know we just had, a report on what our current RHNA numbers are, the category in which we are not meeting is that moderate income level. And they're proposing 20 additional, so then it comes out to 28 moderate income level housing units, which is a need we do not currently have in the pipeline.
And I read that those additional 20 units were going to be discussed with staff, how they were going to be dealt with.
So at the time of the writing of the staff report, that's correct. We've had a lot of follow-up discussion because of this concern, and the development team is putting together a specific plan that the council will see. And right now, based on what they're hearing, is that the additional 20 would be proposed at moderate income. Initially, they were saying they wanted to leave it open so we could negotiate and tell them what we wanted, what affordability level we wanted in that. But to the chair's point, we've had this conversation before where the 15% requirement of inclusionary housing in Cotati fits very well with the 50% density bonus you get for providing extremely low income, or very low income, I'm sorry. So all of our development projects so far have proposed very low income. So we have in the pipeline, we have a number of very low income units, no moderate income units. So to the chair's point, moderate is something that we need to meet our RHNA, and we have no identified project to do so, standing where we are right now. Separate from all that is the 120 East Cotati Avenue project, which the city purchased. We're partnering with an affordable housing developer. We have the ability to affect the affordability of that. However, the available financing for affordable housing projects is based on a lot of different criteria, and you'll recall this developer wants to use one that relies on kind of an assisted living model for some of the residents. Those will likely be more very low income units, and then the majority is likely to be proposed at low income. So based on staff's understanding of where we are now, we have no moderate income units in our pipeline, so that is likely what we would be recommending when we go to council. When we do make that presentation, we're going to have the whole RHNA analysis base and the council can make their decision. But my understanding now is if we got 28 moderate units, that would meet our arena need.
This
completely.
26 is our need,
I think
right?
that's correct, yeah, so it would meet it completely.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons we created the Katati density bonus, was so that we had more control over what income levels were being created and built, so. Yeah. It seems to me one of our biggest kind of holdups as a commission is really just the inclusivity of the affordable units. And so I'm fairly certain that council will have the same concerns about inclusivity. And, you know, maybe some other options in your pocket when you come up in front of them. I like that water park idea, like water spouts, you know, if that reduces your liability.
Yeah.
But really, we are a very inclusive town.
Yeah.
So we like that.
We hear you, and we'll have answers and a plan, and when we go to council, we would really appreciate that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, I do support this project. I think it's a great
you.
project. I think you guys are doing a great job, and what you brought today, I think it'll look great in that area. So I'm not gonna make that recommendation on looking deeper into the financing claim, because of all the good things you guys have done. If it had been a different developer that brought a weaker project, then I think I might have pushed harder on that, but I think I'd like to see this get built. But I do agree with Chair Moffett that I think you guys should come ready for council to address that inclusivity issue.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to upgrade our wayfinding signs, or at least put a little fun that's just for those arrows that I want that says park that way. Any other conditions before we move? No? Do you want to hear from us about the ADU options? And do you want those in the conditions? Can we just have that as we like ADU option available for all 33?
I appreciate what the person from the public said, that 300-something square feet for an ADU, that's ridiculous, although they will get to use the pool, so they can shower there, or at least take a bath. Yes, I don't know that garages need to be 500 square feet, and there will be a lot of cars, and there will be trouble with parking. Count on it. People love their cars. We want them to love their bicycles, but they love their cars, and I love mine too. So I get it. But the ADU is very, very small, and it's too small. And I'm having a trouble with this whole, I love the project too. I want to live there, but I don't want to live in affordable housing, and I don't want to be minimized, and I definitely don't want to be run by Burbank Housing. So I'm having a hard time. I think there's a better partner for you, and I'm not allowed to say that. That's from council, but since I'm sitting here, I will say there's a better partner for you. It's not them. We need people who care about people. I get that you do. You're standing here in front of me and you're listening, and I appreciate that. And we need to care about the people who are going to live there, everybody, no matter what their income level, no matter what their ability, and we need to find a way to work together as a community. And I believe that looking at the pictures, looking at everything that you're offering, that this is an opportunity for community. You're doing that, and I appreciate that. So let's make it an entire community.
Thank you, Shelley. I think that's well said. I will say, I think that how we live and our lifestyles are constantly changing and evolving. And for some people, they're okay with 300 square feet in a junior ADU. I know some people that do live in those, and they're happy to not have a lot to take care of. And so I think it's important that no one's going to be forced to live in them, and that we're open to different ideas and different lifestyles of all different types. I think, do we have any other? No? I think we've got a couple pretty strong recommendations to go along with the motion. And those include, you know, that City Council does move forward with the 33 ADU options. Those are options that the owner can choose to convert or not, but to have that infrastructure in, that we find an inclusive solution to make sure that whatever does happen with that pool area, that it includes everybody, and that we contribute to wayfinding.
And public art.
And maybe move the trash.
Forgot,
Oh, and art.
You forgot, I said you
Don't
forgot
forget
the
the
art.
With those recommendations, does anyone have a motion?
I think, you know, one thing I'd just like to add is, and reviewing this project, like, you know, I know affordable housing is a big thing that everyone wants, right? Because it's very difficult to purchase a house, 500, 600,000, unless you have a significant chunk of change, you know, set aside for that. So I recognize that we're doing the best here that we can to make sure that people have a nice place to live that they can afford. And to a certain extent, the factors that cause the unaffordability are outside of our control or outside of the project's control. So as much as we can do to make it affordable and livable, inclusive community is, you know, the best we can do. And it seems like this project is attempting to do that. And then the other thing I'd just like to say is the site that it is being built on, from what I understand, it was wetland at one point, and it was graded and kind of destroyed, for lack of a better term. And the fact that it is like build ready is one of the things that makes me like kind of sad, because, you know, it could have been wetlands for 20 years, like had we known. But the fact that it is no longer makes me a lot more like supportive of the project. If it were like raw, you know, wildland, I would be a lot more like, I don't know about this, but just wanted to state that for the record, because I know public comment mentioned the fact that it was wetlands before, and it is no longer. So let's take advantage of it, I guess. That's all I had to add.
I'm ready for a motion. Who wants to do
it?
I move that we approve the resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Cotati recommending that the City Council approve preliminary design review, a tree removal permit, parkland dedication, and vesting tentative map to allow construction of a 178-unit multi-family mixed-use development on 10.62-acre property located to the northwest of the intersection of Redwood Drive and State Route 116, and finding the project consistent with the Cotati General Plan and its environmental impact report, and exempt from further environmental review under CEQA Guidelines Section 15183, and include the proposed amendments, suggestions that we put forward.
Do I have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Carla, will you do a roll call vote?
Commissioner Sparks?
Aye. I say aye, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, aye.
Commissioner Gilardi?
Yes.
Commissioner Berman?
Aye.
Vice Chair Long?
Aye.
Chair Moffett?
Aye.
Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
And thank you, everyone, for your patience while we asked all our questions and comments and everything.
Oh, yeah. All right, moving on down. Does anyone need a 5-minute break before we move to our next agenda? All right, let's take a 5-minute recess. We will come back at 8:33.
Hey, friends, let's finish this meeting up. You gave me a gavel. Right? Oh. Order. Order in the assembly room. All right, it is 8:37. We're going to call this meeting back to order. Next up on our agenda, we are still in agenda item 9-B is Cotati Code Cleanup Ordinance.
Thank you, Chair Moffett. Item 9B, the Code Cleanup Ordinance, is the second item being presented this evening. Similarly to the last item, I am pinch hitting for Eli Areola, who Eli, as you guys know, was able to find a full-time job with Four Leaf, and so he's no longer with the city. But he was the primary staff, the lead staff on this project. He put together most of the work, so I want to give him credit. And so also please bear with me as I work to present it, and if you have questions, I might have to do a little digging to make sure I can get there. But the item before the commission this evening is review and approval of a resolution recommending city council adoption of an ordinance amending several chapters and sections of Title 17 of the Cotati Municipal Code to correct errors, streamline and clarify permitting processes, and allow flexibility for residential accessory equipment, fences, and structures. So from time to time, community development staff identifies areas of the code that could benefit from minor language changes to address reoccurring challenges, address inconsistencies, and improve our process overall. This is typically informed by community input, our staff experience, and city council direction on how they look at see things, or planning commission direction as we're reviewing different projects. Staff have identified sections of the code that would benefit from some clarifying language or minor modifications. In all instances, the proposed amendments to the Cotati Municipal Code are intended to improve the clarity of the regulations, streamline permitting processes, establish consistency with state law, and or correct errors. And the changes today are to these sections of the code. So 1722-020 table 2-2 and others. I won't read off all of the specific references there, but we will touch on each of them individually as we go through the changes. So skipping the first change to 1722-020 table 2-2, which is just a typo correction. So that's discussed in the staff report. I'm not going to get into details on that. Happy to answer questions if there are any. But the second proposed change is a section of the code that governs general setback requirements, fence height regulations, and equipment setback rules. These three things all live in this area of the code, 17.30, and then there's several sections. The changes are intended to reduce setback requirements for heating and cooling equipment, so only heating and cooling specifically. Provide the same setback regulations for swimming pools as all other accessory structures, and create a planning process or discretionary permit by which property owners can request additional fence height for solid fencing in their front yard setback. And the reason for some of these changes, we often run into setback rules where there was a piece of equipment that was approved originally, and somebody comes in to replace it and it doesn't meet the setbacks, because oftentimes the home is built right to the setback on the side, and generally heating and cooling equipment is located on the side of the properties. Often we're not sure if it was done with the original approval of the subdivision and maybe just the equipment wasn't shown on those site plans, or if the rules were changed after the home was built and the setbacks were reduced just on a case-by-case basis. We can't really determine it, but it's very common for someone to propose to replace their existing equipment or someone who's proposing to put in a new piece of equipment for heating and cooling of their home, and it not to meet the rules because there's no room between the home and the property line. And so this proposal would just allow this equipment into the exceptions to the setback section of the code to allow it to be a little closer. Staff wants to do this, for one, to allow people who need heating and cooling equipment in their home to the opportunity to do that, and then also because most new heating and cooling equipment has decibel levels that are below the residential standards anyway. I did some research online. All of the new kind of big brand heating and cooling compressors meet the residential standards. So from staff perspective, it's not an issue allowing this equipment to be a little bit closer to the property line. So it's something we want to address. For swimming pools, there's been right now the setbacks are kind of different depending on your zoning district and even the size of your parcel. So it's a little bit arbitrary. And then with all the changes in state housing law, there's been a lot of allowances for the use of setbacks to make things be able to operate closer to the property line. ADUs, for example, are allowed to be 4 feet off the property line and over 20 feet in height in some instances. So from the staff perspective, creating a standardized pool setback of 5 feet from the side and rear property line, still not allowed in the front, would match all other setbacks and actually be a little bit more than ADUs and be consistent across accessory structures. Getting to the fences and walls. So the building code allows somebody to build a fence up to 7 feet tall with no building permit. They're just allowed to do it. Our zoning code says if you want to go over 6 feet in height on your fence, you need to get a planning approval before you can do that. So there's a conflict between what the building code allows by right, frankly what most people have already built on their properties, and what our zoning code says. So it creates this essentially an extra hoop and cost to somebody just trying to build a fence that maybe they already have, or somebody who's just wanting to add a foot or two of lattice onto their existing fence for additional privacy. From the staff standpoint, good fences make good neighbors. We hear that often. And having a little bit more privacy in your property is generally supported by everyone. And so we don't see the need for this extra planning process to just go to 7 feet tall, which the building code allows, or even 8 feet tall as long as the top foot is open, designed like the lattice that most people have. So we're recommending that be included. Want to make sure that's all of the ones there. Oh, sorry, lastly. So there are occasionally some instances where someone will want to build a solid fence in their front yard over 42 inches tall. That's not allowed currently, and there's no mechanism for someone to even request to be able to do that under the code. The most recent instance we had was somebody wanted to build a trash enclosure to screen their trash cans, which live in the front setback. Most of us put them next to our driveway, or some of us. They had a unique property because their property sloped and there was a redwood tree with some roots. The design that they wanted to use ended up putting the height of that solid fencing to screen their trash cans above 42 inches. They had to pay the planning department to go through a pretty substantial process just to ask that question. It was discretionary. We did it at a public hearing. And it required somewhat of a unique interpretation of the code to even get there. So staff's just trying to provide some clarifying language. It would still be a planning process, so planning is going to look at it. It's going to be decided in a way that people could provide comments on it because it is potentially concerning, but we feel like there's a need for a mechanism to allow this to happen at least, as long as it gets reviewed by some staff and make sure it doesn't cause problems. There are some concerns with, we don't want everyone to wall off their front yards. Cars leaving driveways, they need to have some visibility with somebody walking down the sidewalk, but a planning process would allow us to look at all those things and also consider what issues they're trying to address with the additional fence site. So that's being proposed. Right now, as the Planning Commission is aware, cottage food operations and the micro enterprise home kitchen operations have been allowed by state law. These are two home-based businesses that our code doesn't anticipate. So one of the proposals is to put these allowed use, or these new state laws into our code as something that the code recognizes as a home-based business. And we have to allow it. We're just trying to bring our code up to current standards with state law. We've eliminated the covered parking requirements citywide as a part of our parking standards, but these references to in home-based business still talk about covered parking. So we're also proposing to eliminate the covered parking reference that is in our home-based business section of our code. And then lastly, there's a section of the code that says you're only allowed to have one residential accessory structure. So if you had a shed, you couldn't come in to build a greenhouse. Or using the other example, if you had a swimming pool, you weren't allowed to have a shed. So staff's not sure why we have that prohibition, and there's lots of other rules, lot coverage, setbacks, height limits, a lot of other things to limit the impacts of having more than one residential accessory structure. So we are proposing to allow more than one residential accessory structure in Cotati. The next change is for telecommunication facilities. Planning commissioners might remember we had a new telecommunication tower facility proposed on a rooftop. It got approved, but through that process, we realized that the ordinance update we had done did not require coverage maps to come in as the initial application. And that's really good information because it shows what the existing coverage is and what the proposed coverage would be after the new facility. And then it also doesn't require the electromagnetic facility exposure report. So how much electromagnetic energy is this going to produce, who would be exposed to it, et cetera. We were able to get those things later on through the review process, but staff feels it's important to get that up front. City Council has indicated their support of that, so that's also being required in the new code updates that are proposed before the commission. So limited term permits, LTP, that's what that means. So some of the commission will recall we had someone propose a limited term permit to live in an RV while they built their home. And we also use limited term permits for a lot of times events are used. The parking over here on El Rancho and West Cotati during the Cotati Accordion Festival, that gets approved through a limited term permit where people kind of put a bunch of RVs on there and essentially the volunteers camp on that lot while they're working the Accordion Festival. That's a limited term permit. So we use these limited term permits for a number of things. Businesses use them for kind of downtown events. So Flagship has one for all of their annual kind of parties, their Oktoberfest party, their Halloween party. So you're allowed to request kind of events as a business with these permits. Unfortunately, the language says you apply for it, we review it, we make sure everything that you want to do is okay, and then we notice all the neighbors and say, hey, this has been requested and we're going to approve it on this day unless you request a hearing. And then we get to the day before that date and we can get a letter from someone saying, oh, I want to have a hearing, and then we have to add additional time, we have to get additional money from that person, and then oftentimes as a business, they didn't plan on the 6 weeks that it was going to take them to get a decision on their permit. So staff is proposing, because we understand the benefits of having a public process, still allowing people to chime in with their input, we're just proposing to make those decisions at a publicly noticed meeting every time. So it will still keep all the process there. It will still allow everyone to provide their input, but it'll be on a set date at a set time that everybody can know, yes, we're going to get a yes or no at this time. And then if people don't like the decision that occurs at that time, it would be appealable to the Planning Commission. So it's a way to kind of, from staff perspective, address both sides of the issue. One, make sure people can still chime in, provide their input, but two, create a more straightforward, certain process that everybody can understand.
Yeah, oh, we both have questions on this one. Go for it.
I was just going to ask, either side could appeal, so thank you. Somebody from the public could appeal it if it were approved, and then it would go to another potential meeting.
Yeah, it would come to the Planning Commission.
So it would come to the Planning Commission.
But
And
that's
they
correct.
would they have to pay the fees for that appeal?
The appeal would require a fee, yes.
Paid by the person making the appeal?
Correct.
Will the public meeting requirement for LTPs increase the permit cost automatically?
It will add cost to the LTP. What staff has been doing in that case is trying to essentially reduce the cost as much as we can, because essentially our fees cover our time. And so we're trying to come up with thoughtful processes we can to reduce our time and then reduce the hours, but then also cover the postage costs. So there's a chance it could increase the cost up front, but then will also increase the certainty.
Just so I understand what increase means, can you give me the parking lot usage? Could you explain to me about how much that permit costs and how much the new cost would be?
Yeah, so this is a good question. So there's another change to the process to make a minor modification intended to reduce the cost. So it doesn't say public hearing anymore. So a public hearing requires a publication in the newspaper, which generally is about $300. And it requires mailing to everybody within 300 feet of the site, which that can vary between, 20 properties and 100 properties. And that's just a hard cost at 32 cents a mailing, whatever the stamp cost is, plus, the staff time. So we're proposing to eliminate the notice in the newspaper portion of it. So it's a publicly noticed meeting, not a public hearing. So we still will mail everybody within 300 feet, residents and property owners, but we're not going to publish the notice in the newspaper. And the idea is that $300 reduction will balance out with the additional mailing cost that's being mandated up front, and it should be about the same cost or even less.
So, with the public meeting, would this be something that would be put on the consent agenda? That way there, if somebody does want to, they can ask it to be pulled from the consent agenda to kind of, I can see how something like this could bog down an already full agenda for the council.
Yeah, so it's a director level meeting. So it's not the city council, it's the community development director holds a hearing or a meeting with staff doing the presentation, the applicants there, and anybody from the public who has interest provides their input. There's a few decisions that are made at the director level: minor use permit, minor variance, and limited term permits are approved by the director but appealed to a hearing with the commission. And the commission might remember there's even a discrepancy in the language that as to how it gets to the commission. One area it just says at a meeting, and the other says at a hearing by the commission. And so from the staff standpoint, we'll keep it as a public process, but it won't come to these larger, kind of more formal meetings that I agree it would bog down.
So, wait, sorry. Are you saying that last statement, it wouldn't come to the planning commission like a regularly scheduled meeting like we're having today? Or
Correct. So none of the changes proposed here affect planning commission processes. There are some items that come before the community development director as an action, and the director essentially functions just like this, where staff presents, the applicants are there, neighbors and interested community members are there, but the director kind of runs the meeting kind of like the chair does, and then ultimately makes the decision right then, and then that decision is appealable to the planning commission.
Okay. And so in that case, if they appealed, then it would be placed like on our agenda?
Correct.
For the next meeting? Okay.
Yeah. And appeals have a flat rate because they're intentionally subsidized to allow people who have concerns to not have to pay the full cost of the public hearing and the mailing and the review time and all that. So appeals are about $500 flat rate, which I know is still a lot of money, but it actually is a cost loser for the overall process. So continuing, similar changes are proposed to be made. There's what's called a minor variance, and currently it allows a 10% change in a code standard, and it's decided by the director. Interestingly, the code right now says it doesn't even have to be decided at a meeting. It kind of just essentially can be decided at the desk of the director. Staff is proposing two changes to that. One, to make it match the process we just described for the limited term permit. So it's more of a public process. The neighbors would know about it. People would be able to chime in on it. but at a public meeting, not a formal public hearing. So it wouldn't be in the newspaper, but it would still get mailed to everybody. And the other is to make the minor variance more functional. So right now, the 10% flexibility doesn't really get you a lot. So using the 5-foot setback as the example, 10% of 5 feet is not a lot of distance. So we couldn't even use this before with the equipment issue because it wouldn't even buy you, it would buy you half a foot, 6 inches, right? So that's not even enough to be able to deal with the equipment issue we talked about before. So the minor variance at 10% is fairly limited, and so staff is proposing to make that go to 25% of the standard. Commission could have concerns with that because that also includes height, it includes lot coverage, so that gets into some other areas. But no, any of these minor variances, the director can recommend they go up to the planning commission if it's something that the director has a perception of being, needing a higher level review or elevated to the commission level decision. Obviously, that's kind of probably one of the bigger changes proposed in all of these is adding that flexibility. I'll just say 90% of the minor variance requests we get are for setbacks, and it's essentially a non-functional a reduction, because again, 6 inches. Even 10% of a 10-foot rear yard setback is 1 foot. So really, you start to look at it, it's not really functional for setbacks specifically. So that's why staff's proposing to go to 25%. Obviously, there could be concerns over other issues. I would just say, generally, the director's not interested in approving something that gets problematic. You know, if there's likely to have a lot of concern about it, it'll get elevated to the planning commission because it's a one-person decision. So just know that's generally the case. Again, those would also be appealable, and the process would be made in a public forum, so everybody would know about it when it was being made. Also kind of heightening the level of input that gets provided to that 25%, up to 25% request.
Question on that.
Yep.
So what happens today when the variance is more than 10%?
It becomes a major variance, has to come to the planning commission, and I think the fee is $6,000.
Got it. Okay. Wow. Okay. Thank you.
So when that gentleman wanted to build a garage on water, we charged him $6,000 for that variance?
I believe that was correct, yeah. It may be, I'm sorry, it could be lower than that. I don't assess the fees.
Several thousands of dollars?
It's several thousand.
Okay.
It could be 3,500, I'm sorry.
Like in that instance, for the gentleman with his garage on water, would that have been something that he could have had a lower fee with this new proposed change?
I don't remember if that would have been a 25% reduction. The issue there, I think
it was setback.
Yeah, it was setback, but he wanted an accessory structure in his front yard. And so that's not a specific percentage, that's a location thing. His rear yard was a slope, and so he didn't have the area back there. We don't allow generally accessory structures in your front yard, they're just prohibited. But what a variance allows is if applying the rules to you because of unique situations on your property that you did not create. So it can't be it has to be a non-self-created hardship, as I would said. If applying the standard rules to you take away rights that somebody else has in the same situation, then you qualify for a variance. And so that's how that came to here, and it was not a minor.
So if the minor variance now goes up to 25, does that also change the requirements for a major variance?
It would just by allowing the 25% change in a development standard. So it would basically take up that space between 10% and 25 now if somebody wanted to come in like with a 20% setback reduction or something, yeah.
Okay.
So staff, in the staff report and in the resolution and ordinance identified how these changes would be consistent with the general plan policies. Obviously continue to permit home occupations in residential areas, that's very clear. Provide a streamlined and straightforward permitting process that promotes transparency, predictability, and cost savings, and customer service. We really tried to hit all those, both transparency, predictability, and cost savings while also doing customer service. Encouraging commercial uses that provide everyday goods and services, that kind of gets back to some of the home-based business proposed changes and also the limited term permits. Encourage the growth of new commercial enterprises, again, supporting things through streamlining the limited term permits. A lot of people grow their businesses that way, similar to the home-based business. And I can't read the last one, but it is discussed in the staff report and the resolution very clearly how staff finds that this project implements all the general plan policies that are highlighted. And given that, it's recommended by the Community Development Department that the Planning Commission review the draft ordinance and adopt a resolution recommending that the City Council approve the ordinance amending all the chapters we discussed to correct those errors, streamline the process, and allow flexibility for the topics that were presented. The staff's available for any questions. Happy to elaborate on anything that the Commission wants to get into.
Does anyone have questions before we open it to public comment?
I just have a question as far as AC units. I know my son's house in Windsor, the AC unit is huge on the outside. It encroaches onto the walkway, and so between the AC unit and the fence, you actually have to turn sideways to get past it. To me, that's a hazard for, public safety to get back into the backyard. So is there anything that states that there has to be a certain amount of space between the end of the unit and where the fence is?
I believe there would be a standard, but the way it would likely not get caught in the review of a AC compressor permit review. Those are over the counter. They're essentially reviewed and just issued. And likely that's going to be a concern by the fire department. The building inspector probably should have caught that, but it's just.
All those houses are that way.
Yeah. Oh, that's the
I
other
checked
issue,
some of
yeah.
his neighbors. I'm amazed that they were allowed to build it like that.
Yeah, well, this gets back to some of the things I talked to. So when you're doing a brand new subdivision, we look at the subdivision, then we get essentially sample plot plans showing how everything's going to be built. Whether the exact location of that equipment is shown on every single sample plot plan, sometimes things get missed in that.
Yeah, because at first I thought, did the previous owners replace it? That's why it's so much bigger. Then I checked with some of the neighbors and they all have the same one.
Yeah.
And it's surprising that slipped through the cracks.
I agree. So that is a concern. One of the things, I believe we have a minimum distance that's in that section, but if the commission is concerned, we can absolutely make sure that's there.
Let's open it up to public comment. Seeing no one in the room. Carla?
Thank you, Chair Moffett. Lori, you have the floor.
Hi, again, a reminder, I have 4 minutes. I want to tell you about what the code enforcement scandal is, because this has to do, some of the cleanup ordinance have to do with what has happened with George Barrick and why I'm the paralegal in the case. It has gone on for 22 months. It is at hearing level, cost him $40,000 for 8 violations, and some of them are like human habitation of the vehicle. And what happened was the neighbors took pictures and video, sent it to NOAA. NOAA then he sent an email back to them saying, please provide more, basically, more evidence against George. Then there's also the code enforcement attorney has used 2/3 of the, in 2020, 23, 24, used 2/3 to go after George. There's a huge backlog of code enforcement. Now the code enforcement attorneys former assistant has come forward with all this information about how crooked basically this was. And there are things going on like $40,000 was paid to the administrative law judge through the code enforcement attorney, but he only asked for $13,000 back from and that whole arrangement is of paying the prosecuting attorney, the code enforcement attorney, paying the administrative law judge is not in any other city around. He's known to, other than City of Sonoma where he took that, there is major things coming down the line, and some of these codes, it doesn't matter. They're not going to be enforced. You're going to go after people like George because you don't like him. I don't like him a lot either, or a lot of times. But like Adrian Lobby just did a while ago, everybody puts him down. But I hate to tell you this, but he's the victim here. You guys are, the code enforcement and the city is out of control of doing things, and then retribution. And this is all going to come back. And I hope you all are ready. Thank you.
Chair Moffett, that will end public comment.
Thank you. I think it's pretty straightforward. Do we have any discussion before we move? Do I have a motion?
It says city council, but it should be planning commission.
Oh, correct, yeah, sorry. Well, the ordinance says the ordinance is to the city council. There should be a planning commission resolution in there, but if there.
Oh, you know what? You got the wrong one.
I got the wrong one. Okay. I motion that the planning commission of the city of Cotati recommend that the city council amend chapter 17.2 to allowable land uses, 17.3 standards for all developments, and land uses 17.42 standards for specific land uses, and 17.62 permit review and decisions of the Cotati Municipal Code to correct errors, streamline permitting processes, establish consistency with state law, and allow flexibility in the development of residential accessory structures. Amen.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I do that? I'm going to say yes.
You can do that.
All right, motion passes. Fabulous, friends. It's 9 o'clock at night, you know? Okay, moving on. We've got reports by staff.
Just briefly, staff shared the advanced agenda with the commissioners. Use that to try to plan out your attendance. Obviously, if you have summer plans, we tried to, it was an attachment to your email, and I meant to print hard copies and did not bring them tonight. I will provide hard copies of that soon. As you plan your summer trips, please let us know if you're not going to be available for any planning commission meetings. And then in light of that, we also traditionally cancel a meeting in July. The city council also cancels a July meeting. We have historically, as a planning commission, often canceled the first meeting of July because it oftentimes lands around 4th of July week, which is a holiday week. The first planning commission meeting of July 2025 is July 7th. So it's the Monday after the 4th of July. And so from the staff perspective, we are available and open to cancel either meeting, but we were hoping to get input from the commission tonight about canceling one of the July meeting dates.
I feel that we should follow the city council's lead and cancel the second meeting in July, which would be July 21st. That's my opinion. Other folks? I'm going to be out of town.
Either one works for me, and if you're going to be out of town anyway, it just makes more sense.
Sound good? Are you okay with that?
Yeah, that works for staff.
Okay.
Okay, so we are formally canceling July 21st. So you can block that off. Also, the first meeting of September is, I believe, Labor Day, and so that's also going to be a canceled date. Other than that, we do have some pretty full agendas coming up. So just, again, let staff know if you struggle to make the meeting dates. And then also, if anybody prefers to not have printed copies of the packet, let staff know, and we can just, allow you to review all the documents electronically, whatever is your preference.
That it?
Might go in that direction, but still.
Okay.
Yeah. No problem, copies.
And so other than that, just, we don't have anything else to report. We are closing in on the budget process, which will formalize the community development departments and all departments' work plan for the next fiscal year. Once that's done, we will bring that back to Planning Commission so you can kind of see the list of projects that the council has assigned us to work from. It's generally in line with what we showed the commission when we were getting ready for budget. And then the only other thing to consider is we will be bringing 120 East Cotati Avenue to the commission. The process they're likely to go through is a ministerial process, so the commission won't have a role in acting on that project, but we will want to get input from the commission to take to the council and their approval. So just know it's going to be kind of a hybrid process. You won't have a resolution likely, but we'll take your input kind of as a body and communicate it to the council because that project is likely to come forward next month.
Is that the low income or affordable housing that they're putting in that empty lot there?
That's correct, right across from the fire department, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to agenda item 10, reports by Planning Commission.
Well, first of all, I want to say kudos to Autumn and everybody involved in the Climate Ready Fair. It was a huge success. And a little side note from that, you never know what's going to happen when you participate. The Historical Society had a table there. A gentleman came up to us and he said he had something he wanted to donate to the museum. Long story short, he brought a 2-foot carved statue of Jim Boggio, the one that's downtown. It was carved by a gentleman from Argentina who came to Cotati for the festival, was impressed by the festival, took a picture of the statue, went back to Argentina and carved the statue. Donated it to a friend of his who gave it to this guy because this guy was one of Jim Boggio's students, and it's been sitting in his closet for years. So now it's part of the museum's collection. So that was really cool. And speaking of the museum, hopefully we're going to see a lot of you at our barbecue on May 4th.
Are we supposed to bring these flyers home with us, or are they just part of the dice now? Dice, however you say that. Are these for us, or are they just like here? Okay. I thought maybe someone just left it here for anyone who happened to sit here to see. I will take it. Thank you.
The Climate Festival was terrific. And having a smoothie by a bicycle was awesome. Plus, it was free, and that's my favorite price.
I'll also echo, Climate Fair was great. Kid loved doing the smoothie. The prizes were out of this world.
I didn't win a tree.
Yeah, I didn't win a tree either.
Dang.
Yeah, that's rigged.
Who won the tree?
That might be
Cotati
PII.
resident on Santero Way.
Cool. That's a perfect spot for that tree.
What kind of tree was it?
A plum tree.
Ah.
I have a recommendation that I've been thinking about for years. I should have just asked. When you create the slides, maybe make like a box so that the closed captioning doesn't cover part of it.
We've been working on that.
Well, you can also do your closed captionings above or below.
Or,
No, just some
yeah,
options.
that's the thing. You could have maybe like a template, like a layer that
Just
like
has a box.
has it, and you could put it on
And then
top so you could
everything else
see.
is around.
Yeah, you could see where it lands. Suggestion.
We're here for your PowerPoint needs. That's all I have. Thank you.
I do not have a report, but this has been a great meeting for my first day. It's been great working with you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
With that, let's move on to agenda item 12, information received after the agenda was posted.
There was no information received after the agenda was posted.
Thank you. And it is 9:16, and I hereby call this meeting to a close. They're not usually that long.